Chapter 306. Everyone set off early in the morning. As time went by, it was already December. Mr. Chu was wrapped up like a bear in a cotton-padded jacket. Dan Nyang, I'm not cold. Why do you have to make me wear so much? Mr. Chu grumbled as he tugged at his clothes. You're not cold now because you're wearing so much. If you take it off, you'll be cold. Mrs. Chu took him by the hand and got into the carriage with a smile. Mr. Chu felt that his wife was right, so he stopped fussing about his clothes and climbed into the carriage clumsily. Chu Qingyan felt warm when she saw how her parents interacted with each other. Your father is lucky. At least he only became like a child after his head injury. He didn't become demented and couldn't take care of himself. I've seen many patients who became paralyzed or couldn't take care of themselves because of serious injuries. They became a burden to their families and the whole family suffered. Cheng Yanluo stood beside her and followed her line of sight. She smiled and sighed with emotion. Chu Qingyan nodded. Thank the heavens for their kindness. No, it must be because your father was strong-willed when he fell into a coma. He didn't allow himself to sink into depravity. That's why he managed to retain a little consciousness. Otherwise, with his injuries, it would have been a problem for him to survive. She had done a thorough examination of Mr. Chu's head injury during her free time. The results shocked her. When she found out that Mr. Chu was a brave and skilled general, her surprise turned into admiration. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. She knew that her father, who was at the front line, had just received the news that her mother had given birth to her. He wanted to ask for leave to return home, but the war suddenly broke out and he had to stay behind to fight. At that time, he missed her mother dearly and had high hopes for her. How could he bear to leave? Actually, I've already made up my mind. Whether Dad recovers or not, I'll take care of him for the rest of his life. Chu Qingyan's eyes curved into crescents and her smile was warmer than ever. Cheng Yanluo reached out to stroke the little girl's head. Not long after she put down her hand, she heard a cold voice. It's time to get in the carriage. Chu Qingyan replied with a smile, coming. Then she looked up at Cheng Yanluo and said, let's go. Cheng Yanluo retracted her hand from the little lass's body. She could faintly feel that Xiao Su's gaze was so cold that her fingers were almost frozen stiff. TSK, it was just a pat on the head. How petty. Cheng Yanluo grumbled inwardly. Then, she slowly made her way to her carriage, looking straight ahead as she walked past Ethereal. In the carriage, Chu Qingyan looked at the thick stack of books on the table and felt that her vision was blurry. This. She was so nervous that she couldn't finish her sentence. It's exactly what you think. Xiao Su didn't even look at her. Chu Qingyan still wanted to make a final struggle. Big ice cube, it's not good to read in the car. Once the car bumps, it will damage your vision. Are you doubting the wood spirit's craftsmanship? Xiao Su calmly replied. Chu Qingyan glanced at the carriage. She couldn't seem to go against her conscience and say that the carriage was bumpy. However, she was just saying it for show. She wouldn't reject any study that Big Ice Cube arranged for her. But once she flipped open the book, she was already dumbfounded. Big Ice Cube, how do you pronounce this word? Xiao Su facepalmed and reached out to take the book. Which word? She pointed at it modestly. This. Boom. It means rumble in this world. Chu Qingyan instantly felt her brain explode. It was just a simplified Chinese character. She couldn't read it after changing her clothes. No, she wasn't someone who would back down in the face of difficulties. Little guy, don't think that I won't recognize you just because you're wearing a vest. Chu Qingyan immediately picked up the book and started to gnaw on it. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the little fellow's rare serious expression. Only then did Xiao Su retract his thoughts from her. He hoped that she wouldn't fall asleep while reading like she did in the past. It had to be said that Xiao Su understood Chu Qingyan very well. It didn't take long for her to fall asleep. She had studied hard for 12 years to get into university, so she never picked up a book so seriously. She pinched her face and forced herself to wake up. She had already decided to work hard, so she wouldn't give up so easily. In her heart, there were still many things that she wanted to do. If she couldn't even take this first step, then how would she walk the rest of her path? Very quickly, she regained her concentration. However, this time, she brought out the same undying spirit that she had when she was preparing for the college entrance examination. Xiao Su originally thought that she would quickly act spoiled and beg for mercy. At least, that was what he thought before she kept nodding her head. But not long after, she seemed to be filled with fighting spirit. The only thing missing was the words, "I'm serious, don't disturb me," written all over her face. He smiled. It seemed that this little fellow had really made up her mind. Although he didn't know why she suddenly changed her mind, the result was always good. After watching for an hour, Chu Qingyan leaned against the wall of the carriage and let her eyes rest. She turned her head and saw that Big Ice Block was resting on the couch with one hand supporting his face. With the warm sunset shining in, Chu Qingyan felt that this scene was very pleasing to the eye. Although he wasn't wearing a mask and had disguised himself as an ordinary person, there were some natural things that wouldn't change based on one's appearance. A person with outstanding temperament, no matter what they did, would still be noble and handsome. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but spread her hands on the couch and put her chin on them as she seriously looked at him. Because of this injury, most of Big Ice Block's martial arts were damaged. Before the poison was cured, he couldn't use his internal energy. His body wasn't as good as before, so the clothes she prepared for him this time were much thicker than before. For example, the black brocade robe he was wearing today was filled with warm rabbit fur. Around his neck was a circle of snow-white fox fur. Even his boots were padded with thick soles. Although his clothes were a little thick, they couldn't hide his slender and elegant figure. Thinking back to the time when she gave him the medicinal bath, his figure was quite standard. It seemed that some people, when wearing clothes, had an unimaginable figure that made people want to vomit blood. And Big Ice Block was such a type. When he wore clothes, he exuded an ascetic aura, but when he took off his clothes, he exuded an evil charm. Perhaps feeling Chu Qingyan's gaze, Xiao Su slowly opened his eyes. "Have you finished reading the book?" His clear eyes were cleaner than the washed sky. Chu Qingyan silently cursed in her heart. So Big Ice Block wasn't asleep and was caught peeping. "Yes, I've finished reading. Do you want to test me?" Chu Qingyan asked provocatively. "Seeing that you're so confident, there's no need." Xiao Su's eyes revealed a trace of a smile. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. It was rare that she was willing to cooperate, but he wasn't willing. "Oh right, Big Ice Block, I have a question for you. You have to answer it with your heart." Chapter 307. Oh. Xiao Su raised his brows as he looked at her. He didn't know what this little fellow was up to this time. What kind of attitude was this? "Don't be perfunctory," Chu Qingyan emphasized again. Xiao Su changed into a more comfortable position and looked at her calmly. "Ask away." He thought that the little fellow would ask what they were going to eat tonight. Or why people eat the radish that rabbits eat. He also asked her why the earth spirit always had a straight face. This was because she had always asked him these questions in the past. But when the little fellow asked in such a serious manner, he couldn't help but be surprised. "Big Ice Cube, if I had a magic lamp that could fulfill your wish, what would you ask for?" "Magic lamp?" The little fellow said something he had never heard before. "Wish?" Xiao Su was slightly confused. Chu Qingyan nodded vigorously. "That's right. It's something that you usually want, but can't get all of a sudden, but you really want it." I refuse to answer such a non-existent hypothesis. Ever since he disguised himself, Xiao Su no longer referred to himself as this prince. "No, just treat it as a hypothesis. Hurry up and answer." Chu Qingyan leaned over and continued to encourage him. Xiao Su had no choice but to say casually, then I'll let you grow up quickly. That way, this prince won't have to worry about you. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes when she heard this. He said it so reluctantly. No. You promised me that you would answer properly. Chu Qingyan jumped onto his bed and pushed his arm, looking like she wouldn't give up if he didn't answer. Xiao Su grabbed her waving hands with one hand and leaned closer to her curiously. Is this question very important? Chu Qingyan didn't notice how ambiguous their position was at this time. She was completely focused on him not cooperating. Of course it's important. This is related to... At this point, Chu Qingyan suddenly stopped. Oh no, she had almost blurted it out. What does it have to do with? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. He had a feeling that the little fellow was hiding something from him. Sensing Big Ice Cube's suspicious gaze, Chu Qingyan immediately sat up straight and broke free from his grasp. She said angrily, I don't care. Are you going to tell me or not? He did not like to force people. If the little girl wanted to make a fuss, then let her. Seeing that he was ignoring her, Chu Qingyan was a little distressed. This person was unmoved by force or persuasion. How was she going to get information out of him? Suddenly, she had a flash of inspiration. She turned around and chuckled at him. Big Ice Cube, I remember that you owed me something before. Then, when I was unconscious a few days ago, you also said that you would promise me something. Do you still remember? Don't go back on your words. When Xiao Su heard this, he felt a little funny. He thought that she was unconscious and didn't hear it. He didn't expect her to secretly remember it. A gentleman's promise is worth 1,000 pieces of gold. He already knew what she was going to do. Okay, then I'll sacrifice a condition in exchange for your answer. Chu Qingyan said proudly. In this world, what you want won't be too expensive. It can be found, but it won't be too ordinary. It would be best if it was within her ability. There's nothing I want. Xiao Su looked at her, his gaze a little erratic. Basically, he didn't want too much. Identity, status, fame and fortune. Chu Qingyan was shocked. Are you serious? Xiao Su came back to his senses and looked at her. His eyes were deep black. It could be seen that he was telling the truth. Chu Qingyan's face fell. A good condition in exchange for this answer. I'm losing out. When Xiao Su heard her complaint, he found it funny. The bitterness in his heart disappeared in a flash. He thought for a moment and said, if you tell me your purpose for asking this question, I'll give you another condition. How about it? When she heard this, she was a little tempted, but she rejected the idea in her heart. I don't have a purpose. Xiao Su heard this and closed his eyes to rest. Then there's no condition. Chu Qingyan sighed deeply. She watched as 2 conditions slipped away. There was only one left. It seemed like she had to use it sparingly in the future. But the Big Ice Cube said that he didn't want anything, which gave her a bigger headache. She knew that the Big Ice Cube's birthday was coming soon. It would be in half a month. But she didn't know what to give him. On her birthday, he had given her a star tower and a star. She didn't want to casually prepare a gift for him. She felt that this problem was more difficult than the mathematical Olympiad. Xiao Su heard her sigh. Although he was curious, he knew that she would say it sooner or later, so he didn't take it to heart. It was just that the words at that time were used as a joke by him many years later. Inside the red veil, there was a fragrant and soft woman. He lifted the chin of the person below him. His eyes seemed to hide thousands of stars, so bright that people didn't dare to look at them. His voice was ambiguous as he said playfully, Say, if my wish could be realized back then, wouldn't I have to wait until today? She bit her pearly white teeth and pursed her red lips. The color of red wine spread on her snow-white skin. Pervert. So my wife still has the strength to scold people. Their voices became lower and lower, turning into a lingering fragrance between their lips and teeth. The night was dark. This time, there was no village or shop, so they could only spend the night in the wilderness. Turan walked to his master and reported, "After another 2 days of walking, we will reach the border between Sichuan and Junlan." Xiao Su nodded. Go and make the arrangements." "Yes." Big Ice Cube, is Junlan rich in clivia, so it got this name? Chu Qingyan heard their conversation and couldn't help but ask. No, my little ancestor, you mustn't think like that. Although the name Junlan sounds nice, the people inside, they're called crafty and unreasonable. Hualing immediately jumped up to correct her when he heard this. Chu Qingyan was even more curious. "You've been to Junlan? You've interacted with them?" Hualing was instantly silenced by his little princess consort's question. Should he say it or not? "Are you hiding something from me?" Chu Qingyan revealed a faint smile. "Say it. How are they crafty and unreasonable? Or are you jealous that they have more temperament than you, so you're smearing their reputation?" Father Chu also jumped out at this time, looking like he was going to tickle them if they didn't say it. Hualing felt that he was really asking for trouble with his loose lips, so he immediately looked at Turan and the others. Unfortunately, they only gave him a look that said, "You're asking for trouble." Then they turned around and avoided his call for help. This subordinate suddenly remembered that there are many things to do, so I'll leave first. Hualing ran away like a wisp of smoke. Originally, Chu Qingyan had only wanted to tease him out of boredom. However, she did not expect him to be so hesitant to speak. This piqued her interest even more. What's more, she had noticed that Big Ice Cube was looking at the fire spirit with a pressuring gaze. Could it have something to do with Big Ice Cube? However, they were just passing by Junlan in a hurry this time. They would probably have to wait until they came back before they had time to tour Junlan. But what Chu Qingyan didn't know was that plans often couldn't keep up with changes. Chapter 308. Is there any unspeakable secret in Junlan? Cheng Yenluo leaned closer to her and poked her arm. There was a hint of curiosity in her voice. Chu Qingyan shrugged. "I don't know either. Why don't you ask your senior? Maybe he knows." After hearing Chu Qingyan's suggestion, Cheng Yenluo snorted. "Forget it. I don't want to talk to him." Along the way, this pair of enemies could be said to be one chasing and the other ignoring. Chu Qingyan thought that if this continued, Ethereal would be heartbroken. Thus, she couldn't help but say, "Sister Yenluo, I think I saw Ethereal's hand injured today. I don't know if it was cut when he was picking herbs." "Why are you telling me this?" Cheng Yenluo was stunned at first. Then, she glared fiercely at Chu Qingyan. "Why are you so fierce?" "I just wanted to ask if you have any ointment." "I'll give it to him." Chu Qingyan was secretly holding back her laughter, but she didn't dare to show it on her face. Cheng Yenluo knew that she was in the wrong. She coughed softly and tried to cover it up. "I don't have any ointment. Even if I did, I wouldn't give it to him." "Humph." Chu Qingyan looked at Cheng Yenluo, who was about to leave angrily. She couldn't help but chuckle. This person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart was definitely going to get some ointment for Ethereal. At this moment, a big head came over. Chu Qingyan met the blinking eyes and immediately took a few steps back in fear. "Father, don't you know that sometimes, people can be scared to death?" Chu Qingyan patted her chest. She wanted to cry but had no tears. "I didn't scare you. You didn't hear me when I called you." Mr. Chu felt wronged. "You called me just now. Why didn't I hear you?" Chu Qingyan quickly comforted her childish father. "Yes, if you don't believe me, I'll meow a few more times for you." In order to prove his innocence, Mr. Chu coughed and closed his eyes. Meow, meow. Chu Qingyan was still looking forward to it at first, but after hearing it, her whole face froze. No wonder she was a little suspicious just now. When did a stray cat sneak into their side? Now she finally found the source. She patted her face. As expected, she couldn't expect too much from her father. Dad, Dad, Chu Qingyan grabbed her father's hand and almost covered her face. Don't shout. I'm here, I'm here. Look, you're the one who didn't hear it. You can't blame me. Chu Machen's father flipped over like a surf singing a song. Chu Qingyan quickly said, yes, 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 aha. By the way, Kai Kai, what did you say to little Yama just now? He asked curiously. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. Actually, you're not allowed to lie to me. Children who lie have rotten tongues. Chu Machen's father said seriously. Chu Qingyan sighed. It's like this. Ethereal and Sister Yenluo are fellow apprentices and they have a good relationship. However, when Ethereal left the sect a few years ago, he had some disagreements with Sister Yenluo. As a result, they don't have any contact with each other. I just wanted to take the opportunity to bring them together. As doctors, if they are happy, I think His Highness's injury and your illness will recover faster. Perhaps they would be happy and have a flash of inspiration. Then, they wouldn't have to travel thousands of miles to find these strange herbs. Kai Kai, what you said makes sense. Should I go and help them? Chu Machen's father rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was about to make a bold and decisive decision. Chu Qingyan hurriedly helped him pull up his sleeves. Dad, you should just watch from the sidelines. Don't get involved. Although Chu Machen's father didn't agree, he still felt that the reason the two of them hadn't reconciled was because he hadn't helped them. Therefore, he already had a plan in mind. If Chu Qingyan knew what her father was planning, she would definitely pray to the heavens to bless this quarrelsome couple. By the way, I think the young man you've taken in is not bad, Chu Machen's father commented. Chu Qingyan raised her chin and said without much pride, that's right. Look at who took him in. He has good looks and martial arts skills. He's not inferior to anyone in any way. Chu Machen's father smiled. Not bad, not bad. I think Xining is not bad either. Of course. Xining is well-behaved and obedient. She's clever and skillful. She can be said to be my right-hand woman. Chu Qingyan followed her father's words and praised her. Then let's make them a couple. They're a match made in heaven. Chu Machen's father clapped his hands in approval. Chu Qingyan's jaw dropped in shock. Dad, you're just randomly matching a couple. This was too unreliable. Isn't this a good idea? I think the two of them look like husband and wife. Chu Machen's father rubbed his chin and said confidently. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. If Imperial Grandfather was here, he would definitely have a lot to talk about with her father. They would talk about how a quack was made. Dad, Xining and Jean Xian are still so young. They can't tell. Chu Qingyan felt that she couldn't let her father continue like this. Otherwise, the whole team would fall apart. Chu Machen's father's face stiffened. Aren't you still young? You picked up a bunch of scallions and brought them home to be your son-in-law. That's why you don't know that a lot of people nowadays have to be groomed from a young age. It's the same for couples. In any case, you'll be together in the future. Why don't you nurture them in advance? This way, your days of loving each other will be extended for a few more years. Chu Qingyan's head hurt from her father's nonsense. Although it made sense after listening carefully, Chu Qingyan endured the sweat on her forehead and advised, Dad, let's put this matter aside for now. If the two of them like each other in a few years, I'll make the decision for them. Chu Machen's father winked proudly. He would put this matter aside for now. When he remembered, he would matchmake them. Why was he so busy? At this moment, Chu Machen's father suddenly remembered something important. Kai Kai, isn't it our son-in-law's birthday in a few days? As soon as he said this, Chu Qingyan immediately shushed him. Dad, lower your voice. Otherwise, you won't be able to give His Highness a surprise. Oh, right. It must be a surprise. What gift should Dad prepare? Chu Machen's father was delighted and began to ponder hard. It's fine. As long as it can express your feelings, it's fine. Chu Qingyan said with a smile. Then Dad will go back and have a good discussion with your mother. Chu Machen's father turned to leave, his mouth still muttering, I don't know how to make clothes, I don't know how to carve things, I don't know how to dance. Why am I so stupid? Seeing her father's back figure dilly-dallying, Chu Qingyan let out a sigh of relief. With this matter to deal with, her father would be able to put aside a lot of his thoughts and wouldn't harm others. Unfortunately, the results were relative. Jin Xian was playing with his weapon when someone appeared beside him. He looked at the shadow on the ground and saw that it was Hu Ling. Master is looking for you. He's waiting for you in the forest in front. Chapter 309. Jin Xian put away the sword in his hand. Although he was puzzled as to why the King of England was looking for him, he remembered that when he first became his master's subordinate, he was also looked for by the King of England once. He had a guess in his heart that it should have something to do with his master. As soon as he arrived at the forest, he saw the person who was facing him. Although his appearance was ordinary and this common face couldn't be found even if it was submerged in the crowd, but the way he stood there in contemplation made people unable to move their eyes away. He sighed in his heart. Some people were born noble. Even if they wore coarse linen clothes, they were still outstanding. Some people were born coarse. Even if they wore brocade clothes, it couldn't hide their original nature. You're here. Hearing the sound, Xiao Su didn't turn around. He looked forward and said in a gentle voice. Yes, I don't know why the eldest young master is looking for Jin Xian. In the outside world, Xiao Su was the eldest young master and Chu Qingyan was the youngest young master. I saw that you have been practicing swordsmanship recently. How is it going? Xiao Su asked. Jin Xian was slightly surprised. He didn't expect the King of England to know that he had been practicing martial arts in his free time. He thought that the King of England only cared about business and his master. No, he forgot. In fact, the King of England paid attention to him because he was concerned about his master's potential performance. Recently, Jin Xian has been practicing martial arts in his free time, but his aptitude is not good. There are some moves that I don't understand. The memories in my mind are fragmented and even the moves are mixed up. Jin Xian didn't hide anything and reported truthfully. In fact, he had been puzzled for a long time. But recently, Hu Ling and the others seemed to be very busy. He didn't want to disturb them and could only guess blindly. Moreover, he was injured before, so he was more or less affected. After listening to Jin Xian's words, Xiao Su nodded, you don't have to keep practicing according to the moves in your memory. Sometimes you can only use the body's reaction to make a smooth move. Most of the moves that catch the opponent off guard come from following your heart's desire. Jin Xian was a little surprised. Was the King of England giving him pointers? These words seemed to be very beneficial to him. This is a sword manual. If you're interested, take it and practice. Xiao Su slowly turned around and handed the book in his hand to him. Jin Xian was flattered. He hesitated for a moment before reaching out to take the book. Why do you want to guide Jin Xian? He didn't believe that there was such a thing as a free lunch in this world, so he mustered up his courage and asked. Your mistress is still young, and her ability to protect herself is still lacking. Therefore, she needs you to assist her. Xiao Su paused his steps. After he finished speaking, he walked towards the little fellow in the bonfire who was smiling like a flower. Jin Xian understood. Sure enough, it was for the master. However, when he lowered his head and saw the words on the cover of the book, he was immediately stunned. The Imperial Sword Manual. It was one of the 3 great sword manuals in the world. It was a martial art manual that the sword maniac fought over. Jean Xian stared at the unhurried figure with wide eyes. His heart was filled with excitement. Big Ice Cube, where have you been? Chu Qingyan looked at the person walking over and asked with a smile. Admiring the moon. Chu Qingyan looked at the sky. There were no stars or moon. She was speechless. Big Ice Cube, how elegant. They would arrive in Junlan tomorrow. However, because the border between the two countries was basically deserted or overgrown with trees, they had to sleep in the wilderness all the way. As a result, they hadn't had a good bath in the past few days. Coincidentally, they found a hot spring near a hidden cliff. Little girl, let's go to the hot spring. I haven't had a good bath in the past few days. As a clean freak, I can't take it anymore. Cheng Yenluo tugged at her and talked with a pained expression. Before Chu Qingyan could reply, Cheng Yenluo continued to brainwash her. You don't know, but the hot spring in the winter is very romantic. The spring water is warm. It can train one's willpower, maintain one's health, stretch one's muscles and bones, relieve fatigue, dredge one's meridians, and prolong one's life. For us women, it can moisturize the skin, nourish the skin, and resist aging. It can be said to be a great panacea. Cheng Yenluo rattled off a lot of things. Then, she put her hands on Chu Qingyan's shoulders, who was a little dizzy from her persuasion. Like a wolf grandmother, she tempted, little girl, I have a unique massage technique. Do you want to try it? Chu Qingyan immediately nodded. With a beauty by my side, surrounded by mist, it's very romantic. Soak, why wouldn't I? Chu Qingyan revealed a covetous look, which made Cheng Yenluo bend over with laughter. Thus, Chu Qingyan and the others happily prepared to soak in the hot spring. Before leaving, Chu Qingyan ran to Xiaosu. Big Ice Cube, Huiling, and the others found a hot spring. I heard that there are 2 pools. We women will use one, and you can soak in the other one. Chu Qingyan didn't forget to repeat Cheng Yenluo's words, but changed the benefits for women to that for men to strengthen their bodies and strengthen their willpower. Seeing the little guy jumping around eagerly, Xiaosu was a little hesitant. Chu Qingyan, who had been left behind because of Big Ice Cube's instructions, was startled by her father's sudden appearance. Father, are you also going to soak in the hot spring? You can go with His Highness. No, Father has a plan, but I can't tell anyone. Father Chu said mysteriously. What plan? Although Chu Qingyan was eager to soak in the hot spring, she felt that her father's plan was more attractive because she was worried that her father would make trouble again. Hee, Father Chu smiled slyly. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that something was wrong. Little girl. Qingyan. Cheng Yenluo went to the hot spring and looked at the misty pool. She was a little tempted. Since she couldn't call Chu Qingyan, she thought that she must have been delayed by something, so she didn't wait for her. Although she was dressed in coarse linen clothes, her beautiful body was hidden in the mist after she took off her belt. She lifted the tip of her foot to tap the water. When she felt that the temperature was just right, she stepped into the pool with ease. Father, what did you do? Chu Qingyan had a bad premonition. Murongju, get out of here. As soon as Chu Qingyan finished speaking, she heard a shrill voice. Wasn't that Yenluo's voice? Father? Chu Qingyan looked at her father, who was smiling slyly, and called out tentatively. It couldn't be what she had guessed. Father, you asked Xining to steal little Yama's clothes. Then, you pretended to tell Kong that little Yama was in urgent need of clothes, but he wasn't feeling well. Then, you gave him the clothes and asked him to deliver them. Then, your daughter will be hunted down. Chu Qingyan ran away. Chu. Qing. Yen. Where are you? Come out. I promise I won't beat you to death. The Yama's death warrant was coming. Chu Qingyan couldn't care about anything else. She used her lightness skill and went to the other side of the hill. Unfortunately, she didn't know that there was another hot spring there. When she stood at the top of the hill, she caught a glimpse of the familiar clothes by the side of the pool. Her head was steamed by the mist and she panicked. The stone she stepped on loosened, and she fell into the pool. Chapter 310. The moment her foot missed, Chu Qingyan's mind only had 3 words left. It's all over. Although this height wasn't high, if she fell down, with her body, it would be hard for her to survive. What was even more frightening was that she seemed to see a few white figures in her peripheral vision. Ah! 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 She quickly covered her eyes and waited for her to fall into the water. She hoped that she wouldn't be too embarrassed when the time came. Chu Qingyan was already prepared to bear the brunt of the waves, but the moment she fell into the water, she felt 2 strong arms supporting her from behind. Using the slowing force of the water beneath her, the force of her fall was reduced, and she was firmly fixed in place. Her first thought was, I'm saved. Her second thought was, this skin is so smooth. Her third thought was, ah, 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 ah. She desperately covered her eyes and loudly explained, I didn't do it on purpose, please believe me. She didn't know who was hugging her, but they were all her own people. She felt that she had lost all face. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow in his arms. She was like a little hedgehog that didn't dare to see the light and his lips curled. Suddenly, he heard whispers and laughter not far away. Xiao Su coldly looked over and Hualing and the others immediately shut up. They automatically went ashore and quietly took the clothes on the shore, putting them on before leaving. Who told their master to not let the little princess be embarrassed, so they could only feel wronged and sneak away. Because they had been on the battlefield for a long time, it was normal for them to eat and sleep together. Moreover, their master was the kind of person who wouldn't be estranged from the soldiers, so when they bathed together by the river, their master had never refused. But today, they were only halfway through their bath when the little princess came out. What a pity, what a pity. Although Hualing and the others didn't make a sound when they left, the subtle sound of water still entered Chu Qingyan's ears. She covered her hands even tighter. Moreover, mixed in with the sulfur smell of the hot spring was a faint familiar ink fragrance. She suddenly realized, big ice? Do you still want to be an ostrich? She didn't know if it was because of the warmth of the hot spring, but it no longer sounded cold and even had a hint of ridicule. Hearing his voice, Chu Qingyan instantly let out a sigh of relief. She blinked and her eyelashes tickled her palms. She carefully asked, did they all leave? They're staying to watch the play. His voice entered her ears again. Oh, then quickly put me down. Her entire body was submerged in the spring, but she was held in place by his arms, so she didn't sink. Although she had never soaked in hot springs, she had never eaten pork, but she had seen pigs run. Normally, hot springs wouldn't be too deep. Are you sure? Xiao Su looked at the person who was still covering his eyes and asked doubtfully. She nodded vigorously and did not hear the teasing in his words. Turn your back, I'll go ashore in a while. Xiao Su smiled and said, okay. To answer. Chu Qingyan was overjoyed. She let go of her hands and closed her eyes. She was prepared to turn and leave when he reached the bottom. But, what the hell? Her neck was already submerged, but she still hadn't reached the bottom. Gurgle gurgle, help. Ah! Splash! Just as she was struggling, her collar was suddenly pulled out of the water by a force. Cough cough, she spat out water in a panic. Her eyes were dry and her ears were full of water. Chu Qingyan suddenly felt that the world was full of malice towards her. Xiao Su looked at the little fellow whose face was red from choking and shook his head with a smile. You can only blame yourself for being too short and the water is too deep, so you still have to eat the carrots. Chu Qingyan felt like she had been stabbed by the big ice cube again. After wiping off the water on her face, her vision cleared, and a smooth and well-built chest came into view. TSK, she forgot to cover her eyes. Chu Qingyan felt that it was too late even if she covered her eyes. She hugged her shoulders and turned her gaze away in a huff. The big ice cube should have guessed it long ago, but he still let her enter the water. He must want to see her make a fool of herself. He didn't know where the little fellow's temper came from. Was it because he teased her just now? However, he could guess that the little fellow was feeling awkward. Xiao Su didn't care much. Usually, when he bathed in a group, he would wear pants so he wasn't afraid of being exposed. Moreover, the little fellow was still young, so he didn't care about the boundaries between men and women. If Chu Qingyan knew what he was thinking, she would probably faint from anger. She was still a pure and innocent girl. I want to go back to the shore. Chu Qingyan didn't persist for long before she gave in. She had to leave this place quickly. If she saw something she shouldn't see, also, the collar was making her uncomfortable. Xiao Su didn't refuse. He knew that he had teased her enough and that it was time to put her back. Thus, he waded towards the shore with her. Because Chu Qingyan fell into the water a little far away, she finally negotiated with him with a red face. Can you not hold my collar? I can't breathe. In the dense fog, the girl's slightly coquettish tone could be heard. Xiao Su's eyes moved. His hand that was holding her collar moved to her waist. He didn't say anything and continued to move forward. After feeling a little better, Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. Strictly speaking, she had to thank the big ice cube for saving her. Otherwise, with the depth just now, she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to keep her life. Add swimming to the must-learn skills, Xiao Su suddenly said. Chu Qingyan's face fell. She had escaped being forced to learn swimming, but she couldn't escape this. It seemed that everything was destined. Why did you run for your life? Xiao Su continued to ask. Chu Qingyan finally remembered the reason why she ran all the way just now. Her face paled. Wasn't it because Daddy wanted to help Ethereal and Yenluo? Who knew that he would go for wool and come home shorn? Instead, he killed his daughter. This was indeed something that her father would do. Xiao Su didn't think much of it. At this moment, there was a sudden clap of thunder. Chu Qingyan, where are you hiding? Come out. An angry roar was heard. Xiao Su frowned when he heard the voice. He felt something strange on his body. He lowered his head, only to see a furry head. His limbs were entangled by her like an octopus. Her clothes were soaked, while his upper body was naked. Xiao Su was a little startled. When he subconsciously wanted to lift her up, he didn't expect her to cling to him tightly. Her eyes were bright, sparkling, and as soft as water. Big ice cube, I don't want to be cut into 8 pieces by Yenluo. You have to save me. Looking into her watery eyes, the hand that had stopped in midair finally fell gently. I've never seen you so timid. His tone was disdainful, but his actions were gentle. A barefooted person isn't afraid of wearing shoes. I'm afraid that she has all kinds of poisonous powders, poisons, scorpions, and silver needles. If she uses me to refine medicine one day, I'll be done for. Chu Qingyan wanted to cry but had no tears. She didn't realize how tempting their position was. Chapter 311. How do you want me to help you? Xiao Su was amused when he heard her. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. This was indeed a difficult problem. She rolled her eyes and said, since Sister Yenluo can't find me, why don't we go out tonight to avoid trouble? Are you sure? Yes, I'm very sure. Hence, a bonfire was set up near the hot spring. Next to it was a temporary drying rack with Chu Qingyan's clothes and accessories. She sat by the bonfire, wearing Xiao Su's loose clothes. She raised her arms and felt that she could sing in an opera in these clothes. She wrapped herself in the clothes and smelled a faint fragrance. She blinked and buried her nose in the clothes. It smelled really good. She raised her head and looked at the man who was adding firewood to the fire. He was only wearing a thin shirt and looked calm. He was only adding to the fire, but his posture was very elegant. This was the first time she could do such a small thing as if it was just brewing tea or playing chess. It mainly depended on one's temperament. Xiao Su watched her fiddle with the clothes for a long time. He put down the firewood and waved at her. Come here. Chu Qingyan leaned over when she heard him. Xiao Su naturally raised his hand to help her roll up her long sleeves and straighten her slightly open lapels. Chu Qingyan was curious when she felt his meticulous care. Big Ice Cube, have you taken care of others before? Do you think that I need to take care of others? Xiao Su retracted his hand with a look of disdain on his face. She had even used the word prince. It seemed like she had asked a stupid question. However, she couldn't help but be suspicious. She felt that Big Ice Cube was getting more and more familiar with taking care of others. When did this start? Xiao Su saw through her thoughts and suppressed the twitching of his eyes. She was really taking advantage of him. Until now, she was the only one who could get his care and concern. However, he knew that most children at this age were ingrates, so he didn't take it to heart. Suddenly, the little guy came over and unfolded his coat, draping it over the two of them. Big Ice Cube, let's put it on together. You won't feel cold. Chu Qingyan carefully put it on him. I don't need it. Xiao Su pretended to take it away, but she stopped him. Do you know that 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2? Sometimes, it's greater than 2. For example, our bodies can warm each other up. It's not as simple as just our body temperature, Chu Qingyan said seriously. Xiao Su felt that her head was filled with too many fallacious theories. If she could apply them to her studies, she would be able to reach a higher level. However, he did not reject her. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. She was right. It would be warmer this way. Big Ice Cube, you're really good to me. Thinking back on the past, Chu Qingyan felt a little emotional. It's good that you know, Xiao Su replied casually. Will you always be so good to me? People are always greedy. After they get it, they will want more. She was afraid of the impermanence of the world, afraid of the 8 hardships of life, birth, old age, illness and death, love and separation, resentment for a long time, can't let go, afraid that something that is still in front of her will disappear in the blink of an eye. Tonight, she didn't understand. She just followed her heart and asked. A long time later, when she understood the meaning of love, she realized that what she wanted that night was just a promise. Hearing this, he thought it was a child's uneasiness, but he always kept his word. He would not lie, let alone be perfunctory, so he was silent for a moment, thinking seriously. In my lifetime. Saying forever was too harsh, because he didn't know how far she was talking about forever. Her whole life? Or his whole life? He didn't know how long her life was, and he couldn't decide how long he could live. Then in my lifetime, when I'm alive, I'll always be the same to you. Promise too long, I'm afraid I can't do it. Chu Qingyan didn't know that her casual question had turned his heart over 1,000 times before he gave her this answer. Me too. She smiled sweetly, but her heart twitched when she recalled Su Jian's words. Taking advantage of the dark night and the two of them being alone, she mustered up her courage and said softly, if there comes a day when I have no choice but to leave, you have to live well too. You can't be bullied by others. No one had told her that she had transmigrated here. She was afraid that one day, she would also mysteriously leave. When Xiao Su heard this, he retracted his gaze and looked at her. His small face was filled with loneliness. His large hand fell and pinched her small face. This prince feels that I've raised a little ingrate. When she was by his side, she was already thinking about the future when she would no longer be around. At this time, the crackling of the firewood covered his words. Chu Qingyan only cared about the pain of her cheeks being pinched. Hey, Big Ice Block, please be a gentleman and don't bully a lady. Would a lady jump off a cliff and disturb others soaking in a hot spring? He retorted. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. This person really holds a grudge. Where did the cold-blooded Prince of Ing who had no desires and no desires go? Quietly nestled in his arms, Chu Qingyan felt that his embrace was just enough to fill her space. Big ice block, I think we look like Ali and Inuyasha. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Another strange name. Xiao Su didn't ask, and she didn't explain. She just sat there quietly. Some people said that the people closest to you wouldn't feel awkward even if they stayed silent. She and Big Ice Cube were probably the closest people to each other. She felt that this was quite good. The night was getting darker, and the person in his arms had fallen asleep. The little fellow had changed into her own clothes, but his clothes were still covering the two of them. He had been used to such cold at the border, but he was afraid that she couldn't stand it. He continued to add firewood. In fact, he didn't understand why he didn't refuse when she said that she wanted to come out to seek refuge. Was Qing Yanluo worth him being afraid of? It was just that at that time, he was soft-hearted, or perhaps, he couldn't ignore her pleading eyes. At this time, the two of them were snuggling alone in the cold wind. In a magnificent palace in the Junlan state. A maid hurried into a splendid room. Mistress, this servant has already received news that His Highness King Ying will enter our borders tomorrow. The maid spoke very quickly because she knew that her mistress was waiting for this news. Rose Danku fell on the table instantly. Her jade fingers and the emerald stone table reflected each other, making them look even whiter and more lustrous. Is the news reliable? I guarantee that it's 100% reliable. They all knew how much their master valued His Royal Highness. This news had not been verified dozens of times, so they would never dare to report it. Good. He's finally here. Her voice was as smooth as a pearl, and she was very happy. Chapter 312. Xiao Su looked at the peaceful appearance of the person in his arms and smiled. She was usually noisy and lively like a kitten, but when she was asleep, she was very well behaved. He knew that when he was wrongly imprisoned, she was brave and smart, doing everything possible to prove his innocence. When he was unconscious, she was stubborn and strong, desperately wanting him to live. Everyone had 1,000 faces, but he hoped that she only needed to live a carefree life. The fire slowly burned out and the surroundings darkened. He didn't continue to add wood. He had let her fool around for a night, and it was time to go back. Xiao Su stood up with the person in his arms, crossed the bonfire that only had a few sparks left, and slowly walked to the other side of the road. A long time later, when someone asked her what had left the deepest impression on her during her growing up, she would answer with a smile. Chu Qingyan smiled. There should be someone who was willing to tolerate her foolishness with the greatest tolerance. The most ridiculous thing was that it was most likely to last until the end of time. When the two of them returned to the station, Qing Yanluo came up to them angrily. But when she saw Chu Qingyan sleeping peacefully, she took a deep breath and turned around. Miss Cheng. Xiao Su called out to her. Qing Yanluo was surprised that this person, who was usually unapproachable, would take the initiative to talk to her. But before she could calm down, Qing Yanluo turned around and said rudely, "Young Master Xiao, what advice do you have for me?" Miss Cheng, I think that if you care about Ethereal, you should bury the hatchet. If you are tired of him, Xiao Su looked at her deeply, let's cut him in half and end it all. Qing Yanluo stood rooted to the ground. She stared blankly as he carried Chu Qingyan behind her. Suddenly, she chuckled, "Young Master Xiao, you haven't experienced the feeling of liking someone, have you?" Xiao Su stopped in his tracks and frowned, but he didn't turn around. Qing Yanluo turned around and looked at Xiao Su's back. She smiled mischievously. How can you understand the feeling of not being able to love someone and not being able to hate someone when you've never loved someone? Xiao Su did not deny her words. Indeed, he had never been in love before. What about you? Xiao Su asked. Me? Qing Yanluo was stunned and said in an angry voice, then he must know more than you. Murong Ju, that bastard. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw the person standing under the tree with his back facing the fire. His white robes fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were filled with joy. Xiao Su didn't say anything more because he didn't need to. He lifted the person in his arms and continued forward. "Thank you, master." He heard this as he passed by Ethereal. "Go." Xiao Su didn't say anything else and walked back to his carriage. When he reached a corner where no one could see him, Xiao Su curled his lips. "When are you going to stop pretending to be asleep?" The person in his arms slowly opened her eyes and smiled ingratiatingly. "Big Ice Cube, I just woke up. I heard you talking to Sister Yen Luo, so I didn't want to disturb you." "Don't talk like that." Xiao Su corrected her and put her down. Chu Qingyan saluted him. "Yes, master." Seeing Big Ice Cube get on the horse carriage, Chu Qingyan wanted to get on as well. However, she heard a familiar meow. Chu Qingyan's eyes twitched and she turned around. "Father, why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing here?" "I'm not worried that little Yama will harm you." Mr. Chu looked aggrieved. Chu Qingyan was touched and hugged her father. "Father, you're so kind." However, while Chu Qingyan was touched, she forgot that her father was the one who had started all this. Mr. Chu chuckled. "It's good that you know." "Oh yeah, where did you go with Green Onion?" Chu Qingyan pulled away from her father's embrace and looked at him suspiciously. "Are you here to fish for information?" "No, I'm just asking." Mr. Chu's eyes darted around. He didn't look trustworthy at all. "Father, you're getting more and more nosy. Don't forget that you were the one who made Ethereal and Sister Yen Luo get together. The war implicated me and caused me to fall from the mountain." The more Chu Qingyan spoke, the more indignant she felt. Huling and the rest wouldn't think that she was a peeping Tom, would they? "Kai, don't forget that I was the one who made it possible for you and Green Onion to spend time alone tonight," Mr. Chu said mischievously. "Isn't this what they mean by unintentionally planting a green onion and growing a shade?" "Yes, unintentionally planting a willow and growing a shade." Chu Qingyan felt that her father's way of thinking was on a completely different level. "Father, don't get involved in Ethereal and Sister Yenlua's matters anymore. We're outsiders, so we should just watch. I'm afraid that the more we help, the more trouble we'll cause," Chu Qingyan said earnestly. She didn't know how much her father would listen to, but she had to say it anyway. Mr. Chu didn't think much of it. "If I hadn't done all this, would Hollow have been able to talk to the little king of hell?" "Father, that wasn't talking. That was physical violence." She wasn't wrong. She saw the obvious handprint on Ethereal's face. Mr. Chu scratched his head. "It's true that I didn't think it through thoroughly." Chu Qingyan nodded. It seemed that her father had listened to her and was about to get into the carriage. "Next time, I'll think of something else." Chu Qingyan's leg tilted and she almost fell. Mr. Chu clenched his fists and encouraged himself. Then, he rushed back to his carriage excitedly. Cough, cough. "Ethereal, Yenluo, you're on your own now." Chu Qingyan climbed into the carriage on all fours. It wasn't until she got into the carriage that Chu Qingyan realized in hindsight that Big Ice Cube must have heard everything she and her father had said. She felt a little embarrassed. After all, part of what her father had said was about her and him. However, the moment she got into the carriage, Big Ice Cube told her, "The hand warmer is over there. Take it yourself." She looked at the hand warmer lying on the couch and heaved a sigh of relief. Okay. The sky was gradually turning bright. She had just taken a nap, so she wasn't sleepy. She sat in the carriage, feeling a little bored. She recalled Yenlua's question and was extremely curious. "Big Ice Cube, if you meet the woman you like one day, what will you do?" Xiao Su slowly opened his eyes. It was a little dark in the carriage, but his eyes were slightly bright. Chu Qingyan felt that Big Ice Cube's eyes were really beautiful. However, when he looked at her like that, she felt a little guilty. Nevertheless, she still had expectations for his answer. There's no need to answer this kind of assumption. Xiao Su closed his eyes again. Chu Qingyan felt a little disappointed. However, she soon cheered up. She propped up her chin and said longingly, "If I meet the person I like one day, I'll definitely treat him very, very well." Very, very well. How good would that be? Xiao Su frowned. Was there anyone better than him who would treat her better? Why aren't you sleeping? I can't sleep. If you say you're sleepy tomorrow, go out and ride a horse. Chu Qingyan's little longing was shattered just like that. Big Ice Cube was so fierce. Chapter 313. Early in the morning, the group set off for the border of Junlan. Not far ahead was the place where the inspection was conducted. Why is it so strict this time? What happened? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows less than 100 meters away from the city gate. He summoned Hu Ling and asked. I don't know either. I heard that the higher-ups gave the order to tighten the security. Fortunately, we obtained a customs document before. Otherwise, it would be difficult to enter the city now. He had sent people to investigate the matter of strengthening the security, but unfortunately, they found nothing. It could only be said that this order came out of nowhere. Yes, when we enter the pass later, no matter what happens, you are not allowed to make a move. Xiao Su had no clue at this time, but he vaguely felt that this matter was a little strange. As far as he knew, Junlan had been peaceful on the surface in recent years, but there had been internal strife. However, its diplomatic relations with other countries were still good. The Emperor of Junlan shouldn't be most concerned about the border. Yes. Hu Ling nodded. Even without the master's orders, they wouldn't act rashly. After all, there was no need for Sichuan here. A strong dragon couldn't suppress a local snake. Chu Qingyan faintly felt that something was wrong from the conversation between the two. Could it be that there would be some changes in Junlan? Xiao Su turned around and met her worried eyes. He asked, "What are you thinking about?" Big Ice Cube, it's been half a month. We can't make any mistakes. Chu Qingyan was worried. Don't worry. I'll take care of everything. Xiao Su wasn't good at comforting people. This was the only thing he could say. Chu Qingyan nodded. However, even with his assurance this time, she still felt uneasy. Because they came to Junlan as merchants and had proof of their previous dealings, they quickly passed through. The place they arrived at was the town on the edge of Junlan. It could be said that it was the most chaotic place. There were merchants from various countries, as well as people from the pugilistic world. There were also many petty thieves. Chu Qingyan and company kept a low profile, but the goods in the carriage had attracted the attention of others. However, Hu Ling and the others were well built, and it was obvious that they were not easy to bully. Those greedy eyes only glanced at them for a second or two before reluctantly looking away. Mistress, I heard that Junlan is very rich, but why does this town look so dilapidated? Xining asked curiously. Xining couldn't be blamed for asking such a question, because as soon as they entered the city, they saw the flying yellow soil, dilapidated houses, and broken wine flags. The passers-by were in a hurry, and they rarely saw any good cloth on their bodies. Except for the foreigners, whose clothes were slightly better, they basically wore coarse linen clothes, and there were beggars everywhere. Because this is the border between countries, once a war breaks out, these places will be the first to bear the brunt. Needless to say, there will be damage and destruction. Therefore, most emperors will not spend too much effort to develop these places, because if the flames of war ignite, they will not feel too much of a pity. Before Chu Qingyan could answer, Jean Xian, who had gotten off the carriage to lead the horse, answered. Jean Xian's expression was normal, and he didn't even think before answering. This made Chu Qingyan a little surprised. Jean Xian, I didn't expect you to know so much. This subordinate doesn't know either. Chu Qingyan's words made him stop in his tracks. In fact, he also didn't understand why he knew these things. Mistress, is Jean Xin right? Xining turned her head to ask. Chu Qingyan nodded, Jean Xin is right. In order not to waste resources, emperors will not develop the economy here, so the people living in the towns around the border will be prepared to pack up and flee at any time when war breaks out. Xining nodded, indicating that she understood. Turan, I feel like I'm falling behind more and more. I actually see 3 10-year-old children discussing this kind of national policy. Shouldn't they be playing with mud at this age? Hualing was a little shocked. Turan looked at him with disdain. At this age, I've already learned 2 sets of spear techniques. Wood Spirit also followed up, at the young master's age, I can already carve 8 immortals crossing the sea out of palm-sized wood. Ethereal didn't fall behind. At that time, I had already started studying medicine. Developing more than 10 kinds of poisons wasn't a problem. Hualing felt very hurt. He was just complaining. When he was 10 years old, he was thrown off a cliff by his master and learned Qinggong, alright? At this time, Father Chu walked over and patted his shoulder. He said regretfully, it's fine, you can still learn a lot more right now. I'll reluctantly teach you how to dance. Hualing's lips twitched. He lowered his left shoulder and slowly escaped from Father Chu's evil clutches. Then he said with a grateful expression, thank you, this subordinate still feels that sword dancing is more suitable for me. Father Chu looked at Hualing who had slipped away and gave a slight sigh. He said with incomparable regret, few bosom friends, who would listen when the string is broken. Yuan Lang, what are you still standing there for? It's time to eat. Hey, you're here. What are we eating for lunch? Chu Machen's father immediately put away his enigmatic look and skipped over to him. They were currently in a tea house. Although the exterior was open and the entire building was about to tilt, what was surprising was that it was still standing properly. If you wanted to understand a place, you had to go to the place where the crowd flowed the fastest. When their group sat down, the waiter came up to inquire. I want to eat beggar's chicken, braised lion's head in brown sauce, and 8 kinds of rare mushrooms. When Father Chu opened his mouth, the people at the surrounding tables broke out in laughter. Father Chu scratched his head and asked the person beside him, Kai, did Father say something wrong? Are the names of these dishes funny? Chu Qingyan tugged on her father's sleeve and whispered, Father, these places don't have the dishes you want. Oh, then I'll change to something else. Father Chu thought very seriously, then said to the waiter, then just give us any abalone or sea cucumber. The waiter was in a difficult position. Sir, we don't have those that swim in the water. Those that fly in the sky are fine too. Father Chu looked like he was in a difficult position. Chu Qingyan really had to hand it to her father. Brother waiter, just serve whatever signature dishes you have here. Chu Qingyan spoke up to save the waiter from his embarrassment. All right, sir. Father Chu shook his head in disappointment. There's nothing good to eat. The people around them couldn't stop laughing. However, because of Father Chu's jesting, many of the people around them shifted their vigilant gazes away. It was just a pair of young masters bringing a pair of foolish parents out, so there was nothing to be vigilant about. While waiting for the dishes, Chu Qingyan heard drinking, playing finger-guessing games, and all sorts of discussions coming from all around. Hey, Brother Su, have you heard? The imperial court is going to be in turmoil again. Brother Su, what do you mean? Our emperor just ascended the throne not long ago. What could happen? 2 people dressed like scholars were discussing in low voices. Xiao Su's hand that was holding the teacup paused, his eyes dark. Chapter 314. Brother Su, that's because you've been engrossed in reading for the past few days, so you haven't heard about it. The man in green smiled and then whispered, our current ruler used an iron fist to sit in his current position. In the past, there was still the previous emperor. Now that the previous emperor has died, half of the funeral is over. Those vassals are beginning to stir. Brother, Is what you said true? The man in blue was a little surprised. The man in green said mysteriously, I heard all this. Didn't I go to Qing City a while ago? I happened to meet two officials who were drinking and heard it from them. That's too scary. What should we do? If there's a war, the ones who will be hurt the most are us common people. The man in blue looked panicked, as if a storm was coming. The green-robed man patted him on the shoulder. What's there to worry about? We'll just be monks and strike the bell every day. At worst, we'll escape to a safe place and come back when the war is over. Anyway, whoever becomes the emperor has nothing to do with us as long as the world is peaceful. When Chu Qingyan heard this, she sighed in her heart. In the hearts of the common people, eating was the most important thing. They would support whoever was in power as long as they didn't have to worry about food and clothing. This was the tragedy of power politics. Big Ice Cube, it sounds like Junlan isn't as peaceful as it seems on the surface. Chu Qingyan turned to Xiao Su and said. Yes. The previous emperor of Junlan had 5 or 6 brothers. He used extreme means to ascend the throne, so these brothers were happy on the surface but not convinced in their hearts. Because he didn't ascend the throne properly, it was difficult to convince the masses, so the previous emperor could only put these brothers on the land to appease the court officials. After all this was done, the power of the vassals had already grown. Until the previous emperor died, these vassals kept each other in check. When the new emperor ascended the throne, these people began to be restless. In fact, it's normal because this is politics. Xiao Su didn't want to explain so much. Although the parenting manual said that a girl only needed to know how to play the zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, he still felt that his people should be well-rounded and shouldn't be restricted to women's boudoir skills, so he explained the situation in Junlan to her. Chu Qingyan listened to Xiao Su's words and combined with the chatter of the teahouse guests, she roughly knew what kind of situation Junlan was in. Extreme measures. That was to say, the throne did not belong to him, but he took it. It went without saying that there was some kind of conspiracy involved, and it was certain that it would arouse public anger. Moreover, the late emperor of Junlan was disrespectful and had countless concubines in his harem. He even reached out to the wives and daughters of his ministers. He was simply a beast. And this new emperor not only had to deal with the mess left by his father, but also had to face the covetous uncles. It could be said that he was besieged on all sides, because the vassals who had been saving their strength for so long would definitely look for an opportunity to make a move. Although she sympathized with the former emperor, Chu Qingyan was more worried that they would encounter internal strife on their journey and be dragged into it. If that happened, their journey would be delayed again. Huoling, inform the others that we will set off after we finish our meal and strive to reach the next town early tomorrow morning. Xiao Su put down his chopsticks and ordered in a serious tone. Chu Qingyan nodded slightly. Big Ice Cube's order was exactly what she wanted. It was better for her to leave this country as soon as possible. Now, she wished she could grow wings and fly away from this country. However, she had studied the map. If she wanted to reach Jiang country as soon as possible, she could only walk in a straight line across the entire Junlan. Then, she would inevitably enter the most prosperous capital of Junlan. She hoped that the internal strife would not start by then. Everyone began to eat in a hurry because they had to fight for time on their journey. At this time, the people at the other table began to discuss again. Do you know that our new emperor's younger sister, Princess Zime, is now 16 years old? It seems that it's time for her to get married. An old man stroked his beard and said unhurriedly. I heard that Princess Zime is as beautiful as a flower. She is the #1 beauty in Junlan. I wonder which family's good man has such good fortune. A burly man laughed. His eyes rolled, and he looked like he was drooling. Another young man laughed and said, that must be a noble young man from a famous family. How can we commoners have such good fortune? What's so good about being the emperor's son-in-law? Do you remember the previous emperor's younger sister, Princess Royal Fu? Other than her own emperor's son-in-law, how many male companions did she have in her harem? I heard that you can't even count them with 2 hands. Someone interrupted. You are a typical case of sour grapes when you can't eat them. I heard that our Princess Sime already has someone in her heart. It seems that he is a general from some country. It happened 2 years ago, so I can't remember clearly. Another busybody said. Hey, why do you care so much? What does it have to do with us commoners? Another person said. Thus, this topic was changed. Chu Qingyan was very curious about this Princess Sime. After all, women were more gossipy about such matters. Unfortunately, these people had changed the topic. Princess Sime. Master, she. Hualing frowned and could not help but blurt out. However, when he dared to say it, he was suppressed by his master's gaze. Don't gossip about people. Xiao Su glanced at him indifferently. Hualing immediately fell silent. Chu Qingyan looked at the two of them suspiciously. She was about to ask what was wrong with Princess Sime, but everyone was ready to hurry, so she kept quiet. In the following days, everyone traveled day and night regardless of rain or shine. The 10-day journey was compressed into 6 days, and they arrived at the capital of Junlan. Although there were no twists and turns along the way, and there was no internal strife in Junlan, the closer they got to the capital, the more tense the atmosphere became. However, no one took it to heart. As long as they passed through the capital, it could be said that they were far away from the center of the whirlpool. The security in the capital was stricter than in other cities. There were even more soldiers at the city gate checking passers-by than in other cities. Each of them had a serious expression and were extraordinarily powerful. The inspection process was also more complicated. The group was questioned for a long time before they were finally allowed to pass. Chu Qingyan heaved a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to turn around and call for her father to follow, a group of soldiers suddenly appeared out of nowhere. They held long spears and surrounded the group of them. The group of soldiers quickly gathered together, and Chu Qingyan's heart was in her throat. The general in charge of checking the passers-by saw this and immediately ran over. What is this? I have already checked these people. There is no problem. Lord Li, please take a look at this token. The leader showed the token in his hand. The general immediately understood. So it was an order from that person. Then I won't delay this colleague from handling the case. Please continue. Chapter 315. Before Chu Qingyan could clearly see what was written on the token, it had already been taken away by the officer. Everyone, come with this lowly official. The blue-robed officer said to Xiao Su and the others. Everyone was caught off guard by the sudden change. Turin stepped forward as the steward and asked politely, May I ask this officer, we just came from Sichuan and did business dutifully. We haven't done anything outrageous. Please give us an explanation for arresting us for no reason. The blue-robed officer's face stiffened. If you want an explanation, you'll know when we get there. This officer, you don't have any evidence and won't give an explanation. Don't you think this is too overbearing? You're simply bullying us foreign commoners. Hualing spoke without thinking and said with a displeased expression. My master said that if you don't think the matter is too big, then go ahead and make a fuss. The blue-robed officer didn't seem to be worried that they wouldn't obediently follow him. Chu Qingyan's eyes hardened when she heard this. Their group had concealed their names and traveled thousands of miles to come here. They didn't dare reveal their identities because they were afraid of attracting the assassins from Sichuan. And this officer in front of them seemed to know something, which was why he spoke so shamelessly. Big Ice Cube, Chu Qingyan turned her head, wanting to ask Xiao Su for his opinion. At this time, Xiao Su raised his hand to call back Turin and Hualing. He said to the blue-robed officer, We'll go with you. At least you're tactful. Master said that you didn't need to wear chains, so you obediently surrendered. Sure enough, it's as Master said. The blue-robed officer sneered and waved his hand for his subordinates to take them away. Chu Qingyan watched as the carriage was seized and the others were chased into the carriage and driven away by the officers. She felt very upset, but it was useless to say more now because these people clearly came for them. She didn't know what was waiting for them in Junlan. Chu Qingyan felt the uneasiness in her heart grow stronger. Huo Ling looked at the officers in front of him and asked Turan in a low voice, "Who do you think sent these people?" When he raised the token, I took a look at it. It looked like the token of Princess Zime's residence. Turan's face revealed a worried expression. Something like this happening at this critical juncture was simply one disaster after another. I guessed it was her, otherwise who would dare to detain us so openly? Huo Ling was a bit disdainful. I never thought that after 2 years, she still wouldn't give up on master. Don't gossip about people. Turan repeated his master's words to him. Huo Ling narrowed his eyes and gave a cold snort. He didn't believe that he wasn't thinking the same thing. Chu Qingyan, who was sitting in the carriage, looked at the surrounding soldiers through the window. She frowned slightly. After lowering the curtain, she turned her head and asked, "Big Ice Block, have you offended anyone in Junlan? It can't be considered an offense." Xiao Su's expression was calm, and his mood didn't fluctuate because of her words. It was just a tactful rejection of a young girl's feelings. But to him, it was already at the back of his mind. Chu Qingyan held her chin with both hands and was very helpless. "Big Ice Block, I think you have a physique that attracts hatred easily. From Sichuan to Junlan, there are always people who want to make trouble for you." Xiao Su nodded seriously. "Indeed, my life hasn't been smooth sailing." Chu Qingyan was amused by his serious appearance. "Big Ice Block, your skill at telling dry jokes is getting better and better. All roads lead to the same destination." She still laughed happily. The blue-robed officer heard the laughter coming from the carriage and was a bit surprised. They were already in this situation, yet they were still in the mood to joke. It had to be said that the people his master had captured were quite brave. However, his master had instructed him not to beat, scold, or punish them. He didn't know what status these people had to be able to gain his master's favor. The carriage quickly left the busy city and went towards a quiet road. Along the way, there were large gates and courtyards. With a glance, one could tell that they were all wealthy families. The blue-robed officer took them around 2 streets and then went towards an even more luxurious street. Whoosh, the carriage stopped. "Please get off the carriage." The blue-robed officer changed his tough attitude from before and said politely. After all, these people were invited by his master and couldn't be neglected. After Chu Qingyan got off the carriage, she found that they were standing next to a side door behind a high wall. The saffron side door was already open and waiting for them to go in. Since they were already here, they didn't have any plans to be timid. Chu Qingyan and everyone stepped into the courtyard and the side door was closed a moment after they came in. At this time, a housekeeper and a mama stood in front of everyone. "You have come from afar. Coincidentally, my master has yet to return from the palace. However, my master has instructed us not to neglect you, so I would like to invite you to follow Nanny Yi to see where you will be staying." Although this housekeeper was old, his shrewd appearance could not be underestimated. "Esteemed guests, please follow this old servant," Mama said from the side. This Mama Yi looked to be in her 40s or 50s, but her skin was well maintained. She looked like she was pampered and had a rigid expression. Her every move seemed to be well trained. Chu Qingyan guessed that this person might be an instructor from the Junlan imperial family. These people didn't mention the identity of the master of this residence, but these buildings were luxurious and luxurious. Ordinary people couldn't live in them. Moreover, they had the right to raise soldiers. It seemed like they were from the imperial family. Chu Qingyan and the others didn't say much and followed Mama Yi. Chu Qingyan looked around and asked in a low voice, "Big Ice Block, have you been here before?" "No." Xiao Su looked at her cautious appearance and smiled. "You don't have to worry. I know the master of this residence." "You know him? Who is he?" Chu Qingyan was surprised. I wasn't sure just now, but when I saw the layout of this residence, I guessed it. Junlan respected etiquette very much, so from worship and funerals, down to food and daily life, there were social laws and regulations and behavior rules. The building of this manor had already exceeded the area that the court officials could live in. Coupled with this person's methods of doing things, it was not difficult to guess. Xiao Su said indifferently, "You're the one who heard the most gossip along the way." Chu Qingyan felt her cheeks heat up when Big Ice Block pointed out that she had been obsessed with gossip. However, she quickly reacted. Princess Sime, the sister of the new emperor of Junlan from the same mother? Now, besides the empress, she was the most honorable woman in Junlan. Xiao Su nodded. Chu Qingyan was shocked. She felt as if a rumored celebrity had suddenly become close to her life. But although she was surprised, her mind began to work. This Princess Zime had brought them to the residence for no reason. What did she want? Thinking of the news she had heard in the tea house, Chu Qingyan looked up at the person beside her. Suddenly, she had a bad feeling. Chapter 316. Could it be that the rumored general that Princess Zime admired was? Chu Qingyan looked at the person beside her, who was always cold and calm no matter when and where, and felt a little uncomfortable. At this time, she still didn't know what jealousy was. She only felt a little uncomfortable in her heart, but this kind of discomfort couldn't be told to others. Xiao Su noticed that something was wrong with her and lowered his head to ask, "Are you uncomfortable?" Chu Qingyan seemed to have been exposed and immediately shook her head. Xiao Su saw that her eyes were flickering and wanted to ask more, but he knew that this was not the right place, so he stopped the thought. "Honorable guests, this is the place where you will rest for the next few days. There will be a special servant girl to take you in," Mama said as she led everyone to a gorgeous courtyard. Chu Qingyan glanced around. She had to say that the owner of this courtyard was really generous. All the decorations were exquisite to the smallest corner. Whether it was the flowers, trees, or the buildings, they were all extremely magnificent. Just as Chu Qingyan was about to pull Xiao Su into the room, Imama stopped Xiao Su with a smile. "Honorable guest, your room is not here. Master has other arrangements." Her smile was just right, but it seemed to be a fake one. Chu Qingyan stepped forward. "Why is my cousin not with us? What do you want to do?" Chu Qingyan's question didn't get Imama's attention. It seemed that in her eyes, Chu Qingyan and others were lowly commoners, and only Xiao Su could make her treat them differently. Nanny Yi ignored Chu Qingyan. Instead, she bowed to Xiao Su and said, "The master's arrangements are not for us to know. Young master, please do not make things difficult for us." Xiao Su's expression didn't change much when he heard this. He raised his hand and patted the little fellow's shoulder, indicating that she shouldn't act rashly. Then he said to Mama, "Please lead the way." Nanny Yi was very satisfied with Xiao Su's tactfulness. She said, "Please," and led the way. Cheng Yenluo stepped forward and put her arm around Chu Qingyan's shoulders. She chuckled softly and said, "Little girl, don't worry. What's yours will always be yours. Don't worry too much." Chu Qingyan was exasperated and amused at the same time. "Sister Yenluo, what are you talking about? I don't understand. And why don't you look worried at all? Your big ice cube isn't a child. Moreover, judging from the attitude of these people, they are treating him as a distinguished guest. If we travel with him, we can bask in his glory. No one will dare to make things difficult for us." Cheng Yenluo didn't care about the current situation at all. It was rare for her to be able to enter a place where royalty lived. Of course, she wanted to experience it properly. All right. He had no choice but to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. Chu Qingyan could only follow the arrangement of the master she had never met. They were staying in a courtyard. There were 2 rooms on the east, west, and west sides of the courtyard, which were enough for them to stay in. There was also a large hall on the east side where they could chat and eat. After everyone had tidied up, it was time for dinner. A group of maidservants slowly walked into the hall with delicious dishes in their hands. Their movements were light and graceful, and they walked quietly. It wasn't hard to imagine how strict the rules of this mansion were. Even the smile on everyone's lips was exactly the same. If they didn't look so different, I would have thought that they were made from the same mold. Cheng Yanluo smacked her lips and complained. If they are from the palace, they have undergone training. They are more well-behaved than the servants in the mansion, Chu Qingyan replied casually. Her mind was elsewhere. She glanced at everyone. Almost everyone had arrived, but she didn't see Big Ice Cube. She turned to one of the maidservants and asked, "Do you know where the young master who came with us is having his meal?" The maidservant shook her head. "I don't know. Please enjoy your meal." Thus, the group retreated. Cheng Yanluo poked her arm. "Don't think too much. After a day's journey, you should be hungry. Look, your father is eating so happily. These dishes must be delicious." Chu Qingyan looked at her father, who was eating happily. She sighed. In the past, whenever something happened to Big Ice Cube, her father would be the first to bear the brunt. Why did it seem like nothing had happened today? As if sensing his daughter's gaze, Father Chu immediately protected his bowl. "Kai, eat your own food." When he said this, everyone at the table couldn't help but burst into laughter. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. Did she look like someone who would steal someone's rice bowl? However, this interlude still made her feel a little better. At this time, Hualing spoke up. "Little young master, don't worry. Nothing will happen to master. Besides, Turin is also here." Chu Qingyan felt that Hualing seemed to know something. His tone was a little strange. She couldn't help but ask, "Why didn't you go with Turin to protect your master?" Hualing smiled. "Master asked this subordinate to stay behind to protect you." Hualing's words sounded normal, but Chu Qingyan felt that something was wrong. She had never been to Junlan before. If the owner of this manor wanted to find trouble, he wouldn't have found her. Could it be that something would happen next that even Big Ice Cube couldn't predict? "Little girl, overthinking it will be as bad as falling short. Come, eat a piece of red braised pork to nourish your brain." Cheng Yanluo teased. Perhaps her worries were unnecessary. Chu Qingyan rubbed her forehead and started to pick up her chopsticks. Before everything was clear, it was better for her not to let her imagination run wild. Perhaps when Princess Zime returned, whatever purpose she had, the clouds would be cleared and the sky would be clear. Chu Qingyan picked up some food with her chopsticks for her parents and started eating seriously. This was the first time in a long time that she ate without Big Ice Cube to accompany her. Sometimes, once a habit was formed, it was difficult to change it. The curtain of night had just fallen, and specks of light suddenly lit up the streets of the capital. A gorgeous carriage came out of the palace gates and began to rush towards the princess's residence. Soon, they arrived at the princess's residence where Chu Qingyan and the others were staying. Mama had already brought some people to wait at the entrance. When the carriage stopped, a maid placed a small wooden stool beside the carriage. Mama stepped forward and lifted the curtain. "Master, you're back." The person in the carriage replied with a pleasant voice. A white wrist answered and took Mama's outstretched hand. Then, she slowly walked out. A lake blue palace dress cascaded down as she bent over. The golden silk on top reflected the light from the two lanterns in front of the residence. It was brilliant and dazzling. What was even more amazing was that beautiful face with eyebrows like willow leaves and clear phoenix eyes. "Where is he?" After landing, Junmei asked with a smile. "He has been arranged in Luoyan courtyard according to your instructions." "It's very close to your courtyard," Mama replied. "That's good. This consort will go over now. I don't know if you still remember me after 2 years, Xiao Su." Chapter 317. Has His Royal Highness eaten? He has, but he doesn't seem to have eaten much. Mama knew that her princess would definitely ask about the King of England's situation. Fortunately, she had paid more attention. Hearing this, Junmei's beautiful eyes narrowed, and a trace of displeasure flashed through them. It must be that the chef didn't cook to his satisfaction. Which chef was responsible today? Drag him out and flog him. Yes. Although her princess usually punished people for thousands of reasons, this was the first time she punished her own people for another person. Mama was a little surprised, but she still ordered people to do as ordered. Knowing that the King of England was coming, the princess had gathered famous chefs from the 8 major cuisines and kept them in the residence, hoping that they would be of use. She didn't expect to lose one on the first day. Mama didn't know what kind of storm the princess would stir up this time. Although Junmei still maintained her princess-like demeanor, her footsteps were already very fast. The maids following her were almost unable to keep up. Princess. As soon as she arrived at the Wild Goose Courtyard, Junmei slowed her steps. The guards standing in the courtyard immediately bowed their heads in greeting. All of you, leave. Junmei waved her hand to dismiss them. Junmei turned her head and wanted to dismiss Mama and the others, but then she remembered that her wet nurse's old-fashioned personality would definitely not allow her to be in the same room with a man. Thus, she said, Mama, take the others and wait here. If there's anything, I'll call you. Mama felt that this was inappropriate. She pursed her lips and wanted to say something, but when she saw her princess's peach blossom pink face, like a young girl in love, her words choked in her throat. She could only accept the order and retreat to the side. Junmei walked to the door and raised her hand to knock, but then put it down nervously. She looked down at her clothes to see if there was anything wrong. At this moment, she was a little regretful. She had just returned from the palace. She should have returned to her room to bathe and change into new clothes before coming to visit. Forget it. She couldn't care about anything else. After gently knocking twice, she reached out and pushed the door open. Seeing her princess so nervous, Nanny Yi was a little surprised. As the beloved princess of Junlan, no one dared to be treated like this by the princess except for the emperor. And the princess must have done as she pleased. She had never been like this before. She couldn't help but reevaluate the status of the people in the room. Xiao Su, who was standing by the window, was not surprised at all by the guests in the room. Princess, long time no see. As soon as Junzi Mei entered the room, she searched everywhere for his shadow. It wasn't until she met his eyes that she realized that after so many years of yearning, she had finally found the source of her illness. Why are you dressed like this? In his impression, he was a cold and aloof general who wore a silver mask. At this moment, he was dressed in casual clothes. Without that square mask on his face, his facial features were also very ordinary. However, she knew that this was the person she had been waiting for 2 years. Your Highness, you should know the reason. Xiao Su's tone was calm. He did not give her preferential treatment because of her identity. Junmei smiled slightly. Of course she knew. If she didn't know, why would she let her subordinates threaten them? With Xiao Su's temperament, if he hadn't been controlled by someone, how could he be so easily threatened? Junmei ignored his words and slowly walked up. Her eyes were filled with affection. She said tenderly, Your Highness, 2 years have passed. Do you still remember when we met at the border? Xiao Su's tone was cold. Back then, Your Highness disguised as a woman to infiltrate your country's military camp and was caught by your brother. Both armies have heard about it. Junmei shook her head. At that time, she felt that women did not lose to men. She was dissatisfied with her imperial father's decision to only send her imperial brother to battle, so she secretly followed him. She wanted to prove to her imperial father and imperial brother that women could also make a name for themselves. Unfortunately, she was sent to guard the provisions by a deputy general who did not know her identity. That night, she encountered Xiao Su, who had raided the camp at night. Xiao Su led his fierce cavalry into the enemy's army of 100,000. They entered a place with no resistance and burned all the provisions. She couldn't stand by and watched, so she went forward to fight. However, she was knocked to the ground by a sword. Her helmet fell to the ground, and her black hair fell to her shoulders, revealing her true appearance. And it was at that moment that Imperial Brother called out, "Imperial Sister," revealing her identity. The sword that was about to reach her neck stopped an inch away, and she heard him say, "This prince doesn't kill women." When he finished speaking, he withdrew his sword. His voice was as clear as water. She absent-mindedly raised her head. In that instant, she saw him like a god under the moonlight. With one glance, she remembered his eyes, which were even more beautiful than the stars. But at that time, she resented him. She resented him for embarrassing her and exposing her identity. "Xiao Su, this princess isn't done with you." When she was helped up, she fearlessly shouted. Unfortunately, he didn't even look at her and left with his men. Junzi Mei turned to look at him with a hint of disappointment in her eyes. It was clearly a meeting between the two of them, but why did it sound as if he had completely removed himself from it? "Your Highness, don't you feel ashamed to face this princess? If you hadn't exposed me back then, my identity wouldn't have been exposed so quickly." "Is that so? This prince has already forgotten." Xiao Su's tone was still very calm. He didn't feel any change in his emotions because of the other party's coquettish rebuke. Junmei frowned. This wasn't the reunion she had imagined. She thought he would be very happy to see her. Why didn't he have any reaction at all? "Your Highness, you don't remember, but this princess remembers. I still remember sneaking into your military camp, but I was discovered by your subordinates. They brought me to you, but you didn't listen to your aides and tied me up as a hostage. Instead, you sent me back to the enemy's camp. At that time, my imperial brother was very surprised by your actions. It was also at that time that she thought he was interested in her, so she didn't make things difficult for him." Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. At that time, he had already found a flaw in Junlin's army. He didn't need to do anything unnecessary. He also disdained using hostages. Moreover, his goal wasn't just to win this battle. He also wanted Junlan to sign a non-aggression clause. There was no need to shed all pretense of cordiality. It was just that he didn't like to explain so much to insignificant people, so he remained silent and didn't speak. Junmei, who was immersed in her own fantasy and budding amorous feelings, didn't notice at all that he was ignoring her. She continued, "By the way, ever since my imperial brother fought with you, he has admired you very much. If he knows you're in my residence, he probably can't help but come looking for you. But don't worry, I won't let him know of your existence." She had other motives. She couldn't let her imperial brother get in the way. Princess Zime. After listening to her nonsense, Xiao Su felt that his patience had reached its limit. "What do you want to say to me?" Junmei, who had prepared a bellyful of words, heard him speak. A faint blush appeared on her cheeks. Her hands were intertwined, and her shyness was obvious. Chapter 318. Xiao Su looked at Junzi Mei and said calmly, "Princess, when will you let us go?" Her pounding heart suddenly shrank. Junzi Mei looked at him in surprise. She thought he would tell her how much he had missed her for the past 2 years, but the truth was that he couldn't wait to leave. "Your Highness, do you not want to see Zime that much?" Junzi Mei asked word by word. "Is it important whether I see her or not?" Xiao Su couldn't understand Junzi Mei's train of thought. Just like what the little fellow said, they couldn't understand each other. Junzi Mei's eyes flashed with hurt. How could he say such hurtful words so calmly? "Your Highness, do you remember that when the 2 armies returned, I had someone give you the token and a message that whenever you wanted to come to Junlan, you could come and go freely with the token? Why haven't you been to Junlan in the past 2 years?" Junzi Mei asked, feeling wronged. Her phoenix-like eyes were watery, and she looked innocent and lovely. If it was any other man standing in front of her, he would have gone forward to comfort her. But the person in front of Junzi Mei was none other than the cold and aloof god of war, Xiao Su. The token is precious. I have already sent someone to return it to your royal brother and asked him to pass it on to the princess. When he heard Turin's report, he only glanced at it and waved his hand to ask him to return it. Now, whether the token was returned to Junzi Mei or not was not important to him. What? Junzi Mei's eyes widened. How could this be? Why didn't her royal brother tell her? Was he afraid that she would be sad? I only found out about the token being returned now, but I waited for you for 2 whole years. Your Highness, don't you think that as a gentleman, you should make up for your mistakes? Junzi Mei looked at him with grievance and stubbornness. The result of the token was already like this. She couldn't change it, but she had to seize the opportunity and use it to make him feel guilty. But Junzi Mei clearly didn't understand Xiao Su. Xiao Su frowned and looked at her. Princess, I think it's more appropriate for you to talk to your royal brother about this. As if a bucket of cold water had been poured over her, Junzi Mei was stunned. Her unruly personality was about to explode at this moment, but in the end, she took a deep breath. The eldest princess had told her that there was no man in the world who didn't like a woman who was as gentle as Jieyu. Therefore, she couldn't get angry. Junzi Mei decided to put this matter aside for the time being. Your Highness, she said in a soft tone, are you willing to stay in Junlan? Ben Wang is from Xixian. Xiao Su raised his brows. No matter when, this is a fact that cannot be changed. Junzi Mei shook her head and tried to persuade him. Your Highness, don't think that I don't know. In fact, your status in Xixian Kingdom is not even comparable to a prince born from a concubine in the cold palace. She can still live without worry. What about you? You have a status but always do things that are strenuous and unrewarding. What's so good about Xixian that it's worth you working so hard? Why don't you come to Junlan? My royal brother admires you. If you stay, he won't treat you unfairly. She had heard these words from her royal brother. In the past 2 years, she had asked around about him and even planted people in the Sichuan. Otherwise, how could she have found out about him so easily? Thank you for your kindness, princess, but I won't change my decision. Xiao Su declined. Junzi Mei was a little discouraged. Why was this person still as stubborn as before? But she quickly pulled herself together. She wasn't in a hurry because there was plenty of time for him to change his mind. Let's not talk about those things. Today is the first time we've met after being separated for 2 years. It's a day worth remembering. I've already ordered people to prepare a table full of good food and wine to celebrate our reunion. How about it? No, it's getting late. Princess, you should go back and rest early. We'll meet again another day. After this conversation, when it came to leaving, she changed the topic. Xiao Su knew that she had no intention of letting them go. Since that was the case, he didn't have to deal with her anymore. Junzi Mei choked. As a princess, no one had ever dared to refuse her request. But the person in front of her had repeatedly refused her. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't angry. But this was the first time they had met after being reunited. She didn't want the two of them to have a conflict. Perhaps it was because they hadn't seen each other for 2 years and their lives had separated. As long as she was given time, she wasn't afraid that he wouldn't be moved by her. Okay, you've worked hard. Rest early. I'll come to see you tomorrow. Junzi Mei smiled and left the room. After the door was closed, Junzi Mei stood on the steps with an unsightly expression. Princess. Mama stepped forward and sensed that the princess wasn't in a good mood. Where are the people who came with the King of England arranged to stay? Junzi Mei had changed from her timid and lovable appearance in front of Xiao Su. Her tone was drawn out and she had a smile that wasn't a smile. Her gaze was faint and somewhat terrifying. This old servant arranged for them to stay in the courtyard furthest from here. Mama replied. Junzi Mei nodded in satisfaction, but her smile quickly disappeared. I heard that one of them is Xiao Su's princess consort in name. Yes. Mama felt that the princess's tone was somewhat unfathomable. She didn't dare to say more and just nodded in response. Good, very good. Since the guests came from far away, we should properly entertain them. Mama, I'll leave it to you to make the arrangements. Junzi smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. This old servant obeys. Mama lowered her head slightly. She knew that when the princess wanted to punish someone, she would use this kind of tone. It made people shudder. Let's go back to our rooms. I'm tired too. Yes. In the palace of Junlan. Jun Zisheng was still reviewing memorials. When he saw the secret report, he frowned again. Several imperial uncles seemed to be acting strangely. Your Majesty, you have to be careful of your dragon body. It's already late. You should rest. Li Zhong, the imperial chamberlain, stepped forward to persuade him. I also want to rest, but you know that I've just ascended the throne. When my father was critically ill, I left behind a pile of state affairs to deal with. Now they've piled up like a mountain. If I don't deal with them in time and delay the state affairs, the imperial uncles will take the opportunity to cause trouble. I won't allow that to happen. Perhaps he was really too tired, so Jun Zisheng said so much to him. Li Zhong was worried. Your Majesty, although you say so, you still have to take care of your dragon body. Jun Zisheng rubbed his eyes and thought of something. He asked casually, did something happen in the princess's residence today? During dinner, he felt that Zimei was a little absent-minded. At that time, his mind was full of state affairs, so he didn't ask much. Only now did he remember. I heard that the princess sent people to detain a group of peddlers from Sichuan today. I don't know how these people offended the princess. Li Zhong didn't want to say these things to add to His Majesty's worries, but since His Majesty asked, he answered truthfully. Oh. From Sichuan? Jun Zisheng narrowed his eyes. Secretly send people to investigate these people's identities. Don't let the princess find out. Yes. Li Zhong didn't know why His Majesty suddenly gave this order, but he could feel that His Majesty seemed to be in a good mood. Chapter 319. After Junmei left, Turin appeared. Where did you go just now? Xiao Su glanced at him. Turin coughed softly. If I were here, I'm afraid that Princess Zimei would feel uncomfortable. In fact, what he wanted to say was that if he were here, the unruly and willful princess would do everything possible to make him leave. Rather than that, it was better for him to take the initiative to avoid her. Nonsense. Xiao Su knew his subordinate well. He just scolded him lightly and didn't say anything else. Turin saw his master frown and smelled the fragrance in the air. He immediately understood. He had been by his master's side for many years and knew that he hated the smell of rouge the most. So he walked to the window sill and pushed it open. The night wind blew in through the open window, blowing away the strong fragrance of rouge. Xiao Su's expression softened. He walked to the table and sat down. Have you contacted the wind department? I've already contacted them, but the princess's residence is heavily guarded. They don't dare to act rashly. Turin's brows were a little worried. The wind division was also a part of the fierce cavalry, but because they did not follow their master after training, they were scattered in the surrounding countries of Xixian nation. Usually, they would not be used casually, unless it was a critical moment, then they would be used. Moreover, the scattered fierce cavalry did not contact each other in order to hide their identities. Xiao Su was deep in thought. His fingers tapped on the table. Yes, let them wait and see. Don't act rashly. I'll think of a way to leave. Back then, the wind department had spent a lot of effort to plant in Junlan. Once they were used, it meant that years of hard work would be in vain. If his skills hadn't been restrained by the snake's kiss poison and couldn't be used casually, this small princess's residence wouldn't have been a problem at all. But because of the covetous eyes of those people in Sichuan, he couldn't act rashly. If he moved one hair, the whole body would be affected. At that time, the pursuers wouldn't only be in Junlan. He had never fallen into such a difficult situation, but Xiao Su wasn't discouraged. Turan, let Qing Yan feel at ease, but at the same time, be vigilant. Xiao Su ordered. Turan nodded. Before falling asleep, Chu Qing Yan received a message from Big Ice Cube. She breathed a sigh of relief. An exile meant that she didn't have to worry about the trip to Jiang country. Vigilance meant that she had to be careful of the people in the princess's residence. After Turan finished talking, he was about to leave through the window, but the young princess stopped him. Is there anything else, young master? Turan was a little confused. Yes. Chu Qingyan walked to the table, picked up the brush and dipped it in ink. After thinking for a moment, she drew on the paper, blew it dry, and handed it to him. Turan didn't read the content inside. He folded it and left. When Xiao Su opened the piece of paper, he was a little confused at first, but soon a smile appeared in his eyes. What a mischievous kid. Under the candlelight, the drawing on the paper was exceptionally clear. On a plate was a piece of tofu. On the tofu was a pair of crossed chopsticks. On the empty space was a big smiley face. He didn't know whether it was to tell Xiao Su not to take advantage of others or not to be taken advantage of. But no matter what she meant, Xiao Su didn't think that this situation would happen at all. Master, the young princess said that she will wait for your reply. Otherwise, she won't fall asleep. Turan felt that he was using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. He had actually become the messenger of two masters. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. This little girl was fooling around and didn't forget to use him to threaten him. It seemed that she was itching for a beating. He didn't need to reply to her childish behavior, but he still picked up the brush and wrote a sentence on the paper. Then, he asked Turan to bring it over. When Turan knocked on the window, Chu Qingyan felt that her upper and lower eyelids were about to fight. After she took the letter from Turan's hand, she couldn't wait to open it. She saw a sentence written on it. 100 pages. What the hell? Punish her to write big characters. Was there a mistake? 100 pages. Her hand would break, okay. After this blow, Chu Qingyan had nothing left to live for. She felt that it was necessary to sleep and calm down at this moment. When Xiao Su learned of her reaction, he revealed a look of understanding. After witnessing the interaction between the two masters, Turan also felt that he had nothing left to live for. He was clearly the leader of the secret guards. How did he become a messenger boy? He also had to calm down. In the silent night, the Shishuan was still searching through the night. Unfortunately, they didn't know that the person they were looking for had crossed the border and arrived in another country. The night passed quickly. The morning sun rose and the white dew was still shining. Chu Qingyan got up lazily. During this period of time, they had been hurrying on the road and hadn't had a good rest. She was worried that they would encounter a coup d'état in Junlan. But she didn't expect that they were still destined to suffer this ordeal. So last night, she didn't think too much about it. She enjoyed the treatment in the princess residence to relieve the fatigue of these days. Hearing the movement in the room, Xining walked in with a basin of water. She smiled and said, Master, did you sleep well last night? Not bad. How about you? Chu Qingyan got out of bed and moved her hands a little. This servant also felt that I had a good sleep. The servant's room in the princess residence is even better than our Shishuan. This servant didn't even want to get up this morning. Xining rubbed the brocade cloth and turned to hand it to her master. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's face stiffened. Xining, are you blaming the prince's residence for not treating you well? Xining knew that she had misspoken and hurriedly apologized. This servant didn't mean that. Master, don't be angry. Seeing her flustered appearance, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. At this time, Xining was stupid if she couldn't tell that her master was teasing her. She stomped her feet. Master, it's fine that Jean Xian ignores this servant, but now you're teasing this servant. This is too much. Chu Qingyan held her shoulder and said with a smile, little girl, do you know what I'm looking forward to in the future? What is it? Xining was naive and was immediately attracted by the topic. Eating, sleeping, and teasing Xining. Chu Qingyan ran off after saying that. Master, you're bullying me again. Xining reacted belatedly and immediately chased after her master. As Chu Qingyan ran, she thought, this little girl is so gullible. Should I trick her into studying and learning how to read? For example, when De Bing punished her to write big characters last night, she would have had a helper, right? Poor Xining didn't know that she had been tricked by her master onto the path of deceit. You're in such a good mood early in the morning. What did De Bing say to you last night? Cheng Yanluo stood at the side with her arms crossed and looked at the noisy couple with a smile. He punished me by making me copy characters. Chu Qingyan took the time to reply. Cheng Yanluo was overjoyed. You're happy to punish you? It seems that you two have a good relationship. Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes. How could she tell that she was happy to be punished? After the commotion, it was almost noon. Nanny Yi, who had disappeared early in the morning, appeared in front of Chu Qingyan. She raised her chin and said arrogantly. Her Highness the Princess is hosting a banquet in the West Pavilion. Please follow this old servant. Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo looked at each other and communicated silently. Banquet at Hongmen? I think so. Are we going or not? Who's afraid? Chapter 320. Junmei had set up a banquet to entertain them. Chu Mu's mother had caught a cold on the way here and was unable to attend. Thus, only Chu Qingyan, Cheng Yanluo, and Chu Mu's father were present. Huo Ling and Xining were accompanying them. When Chu Qingyan and the others arrived, there was still no one at the main seat. After all, important people would always appear at the last moment. Thus, Chu Qingyan and the others sat down and waited. But this wait gave them the illusion that it would take forever. As soon as they arrived at the banquet, Chu Qingyan had guessed that Princess Zimei would make things difficult for them. Sure enough, it was as she had expected. It was winter now, and even during the day, it was still very cold. The banquet was set up in a pavilion, and there were no screens on all sides. The cold wind immediately poured in. The pavilion was empty, and there wasn't even a heater. Xining's face had clearly turned pale. Chu Qingyan frowned and asked the maidservant standing by the side, when will your princess arrive? Can you give an exact time? The maidservants had already received the message and had already replied. The princess is honorable. Her whereabouts are actually known to us servants. They acted as if their princess was the most important and they could only wait. Oh, I thought that your Junlan's real estate was rich and that we would be able to eat our fill this time, so I happily came to the banquet. Who knew that we would be drinking the northwest wind? Ha, it seems that the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. Cheng Yanluo was dissatisfied with the maidservants' arrogant faces and couldn't help but retort. Sigh, you can't even afford a heater. Boo-hoo, you're even poorer than our little thatched cottage. Chu Mu's father also spoke up. Cheng Yanluo nodded. That's right, that's right. Although our little thatched cottage is small, we still have all the essentials. Yes, yes, yes. I'm almost full from drinking the northwest wind. Kai Kai, why don't we go back? I miss your mother's rice cakes. She won't even give me a piece of cake here. Chu Mu's father looked aggrieved. Looking at the purple faces of the servants of the princess residence, it was obvious that they were very angry. They were maids from noble families and thought highly of themselves. When had they ever heard Yan Luo and her father's sarcastic words? Moreover, they were so easy to find fault with. It was hard for them not to jump up in anger. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and smiled. She knew that all of this was directed at her. If Princess Zime really liked Big Ice Cube, then she would be her #1 love rival. After all, the title of the future King of England's concubine was hers, not hers. However, to be able to scheme against a 10-year-old child, it was enough to prove that this person was not a broad-minded person who was easy to deal with. Maybe it's because the princess has too many things to do. As magnanimous adults, we don't need to be too calculative with her. Chu Qingyan was praising the princess on the surface but belittling her in secret. The maids were angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. What she said was indeed exculpating their princess, but it sounded awkward. Alright, we'll wait for a while. If she doesn't come soon, we can go back for dinner. Cheng Yanluo seemed to have bought Chu Qingyan's account and reluctantly agreed. They couldn't really leave. Firstly, they were curious about the famous Princess Zime. Secondly, she was the mistress of the residence and the princess of a country. It was better not to disrespect her easily. If there was any evidence that could be used against them, the loss would outweigh the gain. However, if someone wanted to save face, they would beat her up. These maids thought highly of themselves and didn't treat them as guests. They didn't care, but Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo didn't like to be ridden on by others. Therefore, they joined hands to beat them up. Since the princess was not here, they would torture these maids. Miss, do you have a heater in your residence? Since they didn't know how long they would have to wait, they still wanted to enjoy the treatment. Therefore, Chu Qingyan asked them politely. When the maids heard Chu Qingyan and Cheng Yanluo's conversation, they were already gnashing their teeth in hatred. However, they didn't think that if they didn't mistreat them, they wouldn't have to make oblique accusations. One of the maids said, "Recently, the residence has been changing a lot of utensils. I'm afraid there aren't any extra. Please bear with it for a while." So it's like that. Chu Qingyan sighed softly, expressing her regret. We must have caused a lot of trouble for the princess by staying in your residence, and we feel bad about it. Your residence does not have any extra heaters, but we have a few left over. We can use them to help you with your urgent needs, and we can also express our gratitude. Then, without waiting for the maids to react, she turned to Huoling and said, "Have Mu Ling send a few heaters over." Huoling glanced at the maids who couldn't refuse because of the young princess consort's high-sounding reason and secretly smiled as she agreed. Mu Ling quickly sent them over. Chu Qingyan looked at the pavilion that was slowly warming up and seemed to have thought of something. They all said that the residence's utensils are being changed. Then there definitely aren't any screens. Mu Ling, have your people make a few screens and send them over later. Little princess, there's no need to wait. This subordinate can make them now. Which one of Xiao Su's subordinates wasn't a shrewd person? They knew that the other party was holding today's banquet in order to suppress the young princess consort's momentum. When they heard Huoling's description, they already had people prepare cloth. They chopped a few pieces of bamboo and quickly pieced them together. 4 to 5 screens were made on the spot. The speed was so fast that it was dazzling. Those maids who wanted to stop them didn't even have the chance to speak. Moreover, they were scared speechless by these people's abilities. Wow, so your subordinates have this kind of skill. If I knew earlier, I would have had them help me make some furniture when I was in the medical hall. Cheng Yanluo said regretfully. Mu Ling and the others' hands trembled. When they repaired the roof last time, they had already turned the thatched hut into a tall brick house according to her request. What else did this young lady want to do? Chu Qingyan blinked and smiled slyly. We've already waited for more than 2 hours. It's already past lunchtime. It seems that the princess will also miss dinner time. Why don't we hold a small banquet and eat while waiting for Princess Zime's arrival? Otherwise, if something happens to us due to hunger, the princess won't be able to accompany us when she arrives. Wouldn't that be a sin? The maids looked at each other. What else did they want to do? Mu Ling, I want to make a barbecue rack. As Chu Qingyan spoke, she began to gesture. Mu Ling suddenly understood after hearing this. His heart itched. All right, this subordinate will do it now. So Mu Ling immediately began to work outside the pavilion. Chu Qingyan turned to Hu Ling and said, "Just the utensils aren't enough. We're still missing some ingredients. I'll leave it to you." Hu Ling smiled slyly, "I won't let you down." In a flash, he disappeared. There was a mountain behind the princess residence. It was said that aside from fierce beasts, there was everything one could think of. The barbecue rack was ready. Fish, rabbits, pheasants, and pigeons were all prepared. Cheng Yenluo rolled up her sleeves. Her eyes were filled with interest as she said, "Leave these to me. You can just wait to eat." She already knew how to use these things. When she was gathering herbs, she had roasted many things before, so she was naturally proficient at it. Chu Qingyan smiled. The pavilion had already warmed up, so she would just leave it to Yenluo and the others. At this time, she saw a maid lift her skirt and leave the pavilion. She knew that she was going to deliver a message. Chu Qingyan ignored her. She was afraid that Junmei wouldn't come. If she didn't come, who was she putting on this show for? Chapter 321. In a warm pavilion. Junzi Mei personally poured a cup of hot tea for Xiao Su and smiled sweetly. "Your Highness, I asked the chef to make lunch according to Sichuan's cuisine. I don't know if it suits your Highness' taste." "Thank you for your concern, Princess," Xiao Su replied casually. If Junzi Mei hadn't said that she would invite Qing Yan and the others over at noon, he wouldn't have agreed to the lunch banquet. However, he didn't expect to see Qing Yan and the others after waiting for a long time. Moreover, Turin was nowhere to be seen. "Princess, you can let my subordinate in," Xiao Su said before Junzi Mei could speak. Junzi Mei's face stiffened. She had finally managed to get someone to detain his all-powerful subordinate, but she didn't expect him to find out. However, the women of Junlan had never been shy. Since she had been exposed, she didn't feel embarrassed. She raised her hand and let the people let him in. After Turin came in, he bowed to Xiao Su. "Master." Xiao Su grunted and stood up. "Thank you for your hospitality, Princess. I'll take my leave first." Xiao Su had just started to walk when Junzi Mei stood up to stop him. She raised her bright phoenix eyes and said in a lovable and pitiful tone, "Your Highness, can't you tell? I'm just looking for an opportunity to spend more time with you." "What do you mean, Princess?" Xiao Su was a little impatient with her repeated pestering. Xiao Su's cold tone made Junzi Mei shrink back a little, but she still didn't give up. "Your Highness, my father has passed away, and my mother passed away a long time ago. I'm very lonely in the princess's residence. Can you stay and talk to me? If Princess feels lonely, you can go to the palace to find your brother. I think there are many people in Junlan who want to talk to you." Xiao Su didn't give her any face. Talking to her so much was already his limit. Watching Xiao Su walk past her to the door, Junzi Mei clenched her handkerchief. She felt like her heart was about to spit fire. When Xiao Su stepped out of the door, a maidservant hurried over. Princess, bad news." "What's bad? Don't you know how to speak?" Nanny Yi saw that her princess was angry and immediately reprimanded the maidservant. The maidservant remembered the way the princess used to punish servants in the past and immediately trembled. "Princess, Sichuan people in the pavilion are about to overturn the princess's residence." "What?" Junzi Mei was stunned. Didn't she just leave them to the side? Why were they still fighting? "You trash." After Junzi Mei's words, she immediately led the crowd. When Xiao Su heard this, he stopped in his tracks and turned around to follow Gentleman Beauty and the others. He knew that this little fellow of Sichuan of course would cause she of Sichuan of this residence of course. Out of the corner of her eye, Junzi Mei saw the shadows of Xiao Su and the others. It seemed that he was concerned about the princess who was yet to be married. Her expression suddenly turned ugly. Before they even reached the pavilion, Junzi Mei and the others saw a thick cloud of smoke rising. Everyone was shocked. These people couldn't have burned down her princess's residence, right? Junzi Mei immediately quickened her pace, not daring to delay any longer. When they arrived, they saw a group of people singing and dancing in the pavilion. It was very lively. What kind of drama was this? When one person saw them, he waved the fork in his hand in a friendly manner. Do you want to try my cooking? If it's not good, I guarantee a refund. Then, he held 7 or 8 skewers of red-hot meat in each hand and waved them excitedly. Son-in-law, black impermanence, love to come. If you don't come, I'll eat it all. Junzi Mei looked at the charcoal on the ground and the burning rack. She was so angry that her fingers trembled. Just as she was about to turn to Xiao Su to complain about these people's actions, she saw Xiao Su walk past her and walk toward the group of people. Qing Yan, is there no share for this prince? Xiao Su looked at the people who were happily fanning the fire and raised his eyebrows. Huling, eat slowly. Leave some for me. Turan also said with a smile. When Junzi Mei saw that they were ignoring her like this, she was furious. But when she saw the hint of a smile on Xiao Su's face, she suddenly froze. Humph. She couldn't make him smile no matter how hard she tried. Now that these random things could make him happy, she would let them go for the time being. However, Junzi Mei forgot that Xiao Su's smile wasn't for her. However, Junzi Mei was a princess. Whatever she wanted in her life, she could get it with her fingers. Therefore, in her mind, whatever she wanted was hers. While Chu Qingyan was fanning herself, she saw Big Ice Cube and the young girl walking over together. Although Big Ice Cube was in disguise, it was difficult to hide his elegance. The young girl's twin phoenixes were bright and clear. The two of them stood side by side, a handsome man and a beautiful woman. It was as if they were a match made in heaven. Junzi Mei felt uncomfortable. Thus, Chu Qingyan fanned herself with all her might. Cheng Luo, who was seasoning the food, choked on the smoke. She coughed and said, "Little girl, you can be jealous, but don't get the fish in the moat involved." Chu Qingyan rolled her eyes at her. She loved to talk nonsense. But at this time, Big Ice Cube's words happened to ring in her ears. She pretended not to hear. She originally thought that if she didn't see Big Ice Cube today, she would have someone pack a portion of barbecued meat for him. But who knew that he was with someone else and had long forgotten about them? Humph. She decided to ignore him today. You didn't eat much for lunch. The indifferent voice rang in her ears again. Chu Qingyan immediately gave in. You're not full. Chu Qingyan asked instinctively. Then, she turned to Yan Luo and said, Sister Yan Luo, help me roast 2 drumsticks, corn, eggplant and chicken wings. Cheng Yan Luo rolled her eyes. Who was the one who looked as if she would ignore him even if he beat her to death? She really lost to her. She even ordered so many dishes. She didn't have that many hands. Cheng Yan Luo forked a freshly roasted drumstick and stuffed it into her hands. Here, I'll give you a drumstick first. Chu Qingyan blew on it and passed it to him without thinking much. Xiao Su reached out and took it. He glanced at the shiny golden drumstick but didn't eat it immediately. Instead, he lowered his head and looked at her. You came up with this idea? Chu Qingyan suddenly recalled that she had wanted to ignore him earlier, but she hadn't expected her body to be honest and not react with her brain. That had betrayed her. But at this moment, she was slightly displeased by his question. What else could it be? Where was he when she was being wronged and treated coldly here today? Was he chatting with someone else? He had promised to reassure her, but a day and a night had passed and there was still no news. She didn't even know if she could leave this place. When he heard this, Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. Are you throwing a tantrum? No. Chu Qingyan turned her head away and refused to look at him. Is this Chu Qingyan? An unfriendly voice sounded from outside the pavilion. Chapter 322. As soon as she spoke, she successfully attracted everyone's attention. Junmei was used to being in the limelight, so she raised her head proudly and walked up to the pavilion step by step. The maids on both sides cleared the way for her. Chu Qingyan could already feel the woman's deep malice when she called out her name. She had thought that this woman was as beautiful as a flower, but now, it seemed like she was a rose with thorns. You are? Chu Qingyan pretended to be surprised as she looked at Junmei. She was acting like a 10-year-old child. Junmei looked at Junmei and found that this legendary consort of the King of England was just so. Junmei's body hadn't fully developed yet. Although she was tall, she only reached Junmei's chin. If Chu Qingyan knew what Junmei was thinking, she would probably roll her eyes. She hadn't even developed yet, and this person wanted her to be like a 15-year-old girl with a full figure and? If that was really the case, she would probably be captured as a monster. Junmei couldn't help but laugh. Her tone was somewhat sarcastic. As expected of a child. Any normal person would be able to guess this consort's identity. Junmei was dressed luxuriously and was surrounded by countless maids. Anyone with a discerning eye would know that she was the master of this residence. However, Chu Qingyan narrowed her eyes. This person was trying to put her in her place. Don't worry. You have your tricks, but I have my ways. Chu Qingyan scratched her head and turned to ask Cheng Yenluo in confusion, older sister Yenluo, can you guess her identity? Is she the steward of this residence? Cheng Yenluo replied uncertainly, but she was already trying to stifle her laughter. Father must also be a mama. Father Chu agreed. Xining shook her head. This servant doesn't know. Hualing raised his hands. Young princess consort, don't ask this servant. After asking around, Chu Qingyan shrugged helplessly at Junmei. Look, no one can guess. Either we're abnormal, or you're abnormal. But from the looks of it, we should be normal. Junmei's smile had already disappeared when this group of people was talking nonsense about her identity. Now that Chu Qingyan was openly provoking her, her phoenix eyes flashed with anger. How dare you look down on this consort? Men, drag him away and flog him to serve me. As soon as she said this, the maids waiting at the side prepared to carry out the order. Hualing and Turin had already put down the skewers and automatically stood in front of their young princess consort. Princess, you have no right to punish her, Xiao Su's voice. This is Junlan, not your Shi Xian. Junmei blurted out arrogantly and conceitedly. Xiao Su glanced at her coldly. She is Xishuan's princess consort, not your princess consort. Just based on this, you can't touch her at all. Everyone was stunned by the domineering King of England. Chu Qingyan silently shouted in her heart. Mighty big ice block. Junmei, who had been blinded by anger, finally reacted. She regretted her impulsiveness. She wanted to show her gentle and pleasant side to Xiao Su, not her arrogant and domineering side. This was because the eldest princess had told her that Sichuan women were beautiful in their gentleness, but Junlan women were beautiful in their toughness. So in front of him, she restrained her nature. She didn't expect that she would be so angered by Chu Qingyan. She didn't know if Xiao Su would be disgusted by her actions just now. But when she thought of this, Junmei raised her head to look at the person in front of her. That cold gaze instantly shattered her pride as a princess. She couldn't help but say, Xiao Su, don't forget that Sichuan is looking for you everywhere. Once you admit your identity, you will be killed. So here, there is no lord or princess consort. Do you know that? This was a blatant threat. She was threatening them not to admit their identity, but if they didn't admit their identity, it meant that they were at her mercy. This king will never be afraid to admit his identity because of any situation. Xiao Su frowned. If he was going to be trapped here, he might as well reveal his identity. He wanted to see how fast Sichuan's people were. Junmei swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. A trace of annoyance flashed in her eyes. How did things turn out like this? As soon as Xiao Su spoke, Chu Qingyan grabbed his hand and shook her head at him. Although she didn't want to admit Junmei's words, it was true that they were in a precarious situation. Once they admitted their identity, the assassins would be on the move. At that time, it would be even more difficult for them to go to Jiang Kingdom. Xiao Su looked deeply at Chu Qingyan. If his martial arts hadn't been suppressed, they wouldn't have had to suffer such grievances. Princess, I said something wrong just now. But the ignorant are innocent. I think you won't bicker with a child like me, right? Chu Qingyan winked at Junmei to show her kindness. She believed that Junmei wouldn't refuse to give her a way out. She could tell that Junmei liked Big Ice Cube very much. Although those affectionate eyes were dazzling, they revealed her true feelings. At the same time, she could tell that Junmei had been forced into a corner just now. Now she was regretting it, so everything could be quickly covered up. Junmei immediately followed her words. This princess is deeply righteous. Why would I bicker with a little girl like you? She was worried about how to resolve this situation. If Xiao Su brought people to make a scene and her imperial brother found out, she would probably be punished. Although the way she addressed her was unpleasant, Chu Qingyan turned a deaf ear to it. Princess is indeed deeply righteous. You can hold a boat in your stomach. Then Chu Qingyan continued, didn't you want to hold a welcoming feast for us? Unfortunately, we decided to hold this barbecue feast on our own. Do you want to join us? It's quite fun. You can cook it yourself. The reason she dared to hold a barbecue feast in the princess's residence was because she had experienced the customs of Junlan on the way here. Junlan's name sounded quite elegant. Before she came, she thought that the people here were either elegant young masters or gentle and graceful women from Jiangnan. Unfortunately, after seeing it for herself, she realized what it meant to ruin her three views. Not only were the customs tough, the men were all big and burly, while the women didn't care about trifles. If they took a fancy to a man on the street, they would directly kidnap him home to be their son-in-law. She felt that the barbecue wouldn't cross Junmei's bottom line, so she dared to openly set up a barbecue rack in the princess's residence. It looks pretty good. Then this princess won't be polite. Junmei dismissed the maids and looked at the barbecue rack. As for Hualing, Turin, and the others who were ready to fight, they were dumbfounded from the moment their little princess consort opened her mouth. Why did they feel like they couldn't keep up with the situation? Who could explain how the two of them, who were blazing with fire just a moment ago, could suddenly get along so well? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows, but under the little fellow's secret tug, he finally closed his mouth. Only Qing Yanluo could see that under the calm surface, the two people were turbulent. Chapter 323. Chu Qingyan knew that Junzi hadn't changed her mind because of her kindness. Everything was just a facade. To be able to send people to detain them in broad daylight, she must have made arrangements and figured out their route. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been caught as soon as they entered the city. Her speed was so fast that it was obvious that although this Junzi had a domineering personality, she was meticulous. She had only lost her composure because she was angered by Lin Mengya. Kai, this owner is so poor, Chu Qian's father mumbled as he took a bite of chicken. Chu Qingyan stared blankly for a moment. Was her father trying to say that this princess was very fierce? Shu, Xining immediately said to Chu Qian's father, Old master, keep your voice down. Otherwise, what if the princess goes crazy again? Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. Xining wanted to say, what if she gets angry again? She patted her head. Why were the people around her talking so strangely? Could it be that she had led them astray? Big Ice Cube. Chu Qingyan turned to the person beside her with a serious expression. Tell me honestly, what have you been doing today? At this moment, Junzi wanted to walk back to Xiao Su's side. Cheng Yanluo thought that she couldn't let the unruly princess interrupt the little girl's interrogation. Thus, she quickly stopped Junzi. Princess, what do you think of the meat I roasted? Isn't it too charred? But don't you think the fragrance is just right? It's crispy on the inside and tender on the inside. Cheng Yanluo then led her to the pavilion. Junzi Mei couldn't resist Cheng Yanluo's enthusiasm. In order to leave a good impression on Xiao Su, she restrained her temper and didn't explode. Instead, she was led away from Xiao Su's side. Xiao Su's gaze fell on the person in front of him. She had a serious expression on her face, but the charcoal marks on her face ruined the serious atmosphere she wanted to create. He stretched out his hand. Handkerchief. What? She didn't seem to ask about the handkerchief. But she still lowered her head, took out a handkerchief from her sleeve, and handed it to him. Then she continued, "You still haven't told me, today you..." Before she could finish her sentence, she felt a black shadow brush past her eyes, and then the handkerchief she had just handed to him fell on her face. She was stunned. Xiao Su wiped her face and replied casually, "I had lunch with the princess and thought you were there." "Oh." Chu Qingyan nodded woodenly. Did Big Ice Cube mean that he thought the princess had invited them, so he went, but unfortunately, he didn't see them? When Hualing saw this scene, his mouth opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed inside. Was the master reporting his whereabouts to the young princess? It was too frightening. He needed a glass of water to calm down. Before he could close his mouth, a piece of meat was stuffed into his mouth, and a concerned voice sounded in his ears. "White impermanence, I see that your mouth is so wide open, just like those little chicks on the trees in my residence. You must be too hungry. Don't worry, I'll roast it for you." Hualing's eyes popped out. This piece of meat was raw, right? He wanted to vomit. Xiao Su had only casually replied, not thinking too much about it. But today's actions determined the future. Several years later. "Ian, I'm going to the horse training field today. Go, come back early." "Ian, I'll be eating outside this afternoon, so I won't be coming back." "Alright, remember to eat more." Hualing, send a message to the princess. This king will be returning an hour later than normal. Yes. When Junmei on the side saw Xiao Su helping Chu Qingyan wipe her face, her eyes almost spat out flames. She had done so much, but he still didn't treat her well. As for Chu Qingyan, she didn't need to do anything, but she could receive his gentle care. This wasn't fair. She calmed herself down. Now was not the time to be angry. The eldest princess had told her that if she wanted a man to like her, she didn't need to rely on brute force, but rather intelligence. She believed that there would be a day when she would have Xiao Su willingly stay by her side. This afternoon, in order to accompany Xiao Su, she didn't eat much. Now that her appetite had been aroused by this barbecue, she waved her hand and good wine and dishes were brought up. A fine stove and a fine screen were also brought up one by one. Chu Qingyan knew that what Mu Ling had done was a slap to her face, so she had people take it down. So she didn't argue with Junmei too much. Anyway, these things were all taken from her princess palace, so they didn't lose anything. Everyone began to sit down. Junmei was the host. She sat down first, then gestured for Xiao Su to sit next to her. Unfortunately, Xiao Su didn't seem to notice her gesture and walked over to sit next to Chu Qingyan. When Junmei saw this, she wanted to move to the other side of Xiao Su. Unfortunately, someone was faster than her and had already taken that seat. Father Chu smiled at his son-in-law. "Son-in-law, if there's anything you can't get, father will help you." Chu Qingyan looked at her father sitting next to Big Ice Cube and couldn't help but shake her head in amusement. Father would probably pester Big Ice Cube to get him more food later. Junmei's expression was unhappy that her seat was taken. Fortunately, she was sitting opposite Xiao Su, so the two of them could talk face to face. This made her feel much better. Everyone began to eat. Sure enough, everything was as Chu Qingyan thought. "Son-in-law, I want that, green onions, I want that." Junmei knew that this fool was Chu Qingyan's father. In the investigation, the information was very clear. She wanted to mock him for wanting the man she liked to get food for this fool, but before she could say anything, she was so shocked by what was happening in front of her that she almost bit off her tongue. This? Xiao Su's chopstick stopped on a plate of braised pork ribs as he asked calmly. Father Chu immediately nodded, his saliva almost dripping down. Then, a piece of braised pork ribs fell into his bowl. Father Chu took a bite of the pork ribs and sighed in satisfaction. People say that having a son-in-law is like having half a son. It's true. Jun Juanmei's face darkened. How could this lowly peasant be qualified to be Xiao Su's father-in-law? She looked at Chu Qingyan and cursed in her heart. I'll let you be happy for a while. Sooner or later, Xiao Su will be hers. However, everyone seemed to have gotten used to Father Chu's shocking words. They lowered their heads and ate quietly. They were halfway through the meal, but the scene that Jun Junmei imagined with Xiao Su did not happen. Instead, he turned a blind eye to her affectionate gaze. This was because he never raised his head to look at her. He was either taking care of Chu Qingyan for a while, or getting food for that fool for a while. He looked very busy. Every time she wanted to talk to him, Cheng Yenluo would always interrupt. She was getting impatient. If she didn't take the initiative, she wouldn't be able to talk to him by the time the meal was over. Chapter 324. Your Highness, this princess offers a toast to you. Junmei poured herself a cup of wine and raised it in a toast. You've had a hard journey. This meal can be considered as a true welcoming dinner for you. As soon as Junmei finished speaking, Chu Qingyan frowned. Big Ice Cube was poisoned, so he couldn't touch wine. Moreover, the wound on his chest hadn't healed yet, so he couldn't touch wine either. Thus, Chu Qingyan smiled and said, Princess, His Highness can't drink wine today. Please forgive him. Junmei was a little displeased. Miss Chu, this princess is talking to the King of England. You have no right to make decisions for the King of England. Although you are the King of England's fiancé, you must remember that it's a fiancé, not a married one. There's a big difference. Calling her Miss Chu meant that she didn't acknowledge her status. Chu Qingyan thought it was a little funny. Before she could retort, the person beside her said, Qingyan's marriage was personally bestowed by the Emperor Emeritus. The current Sichuan Emperor personally decreed that she's the King of England's fiancé. Whether it's now or in the future, this is an unchangeable fact. So right now, she's just fulfilling her duties as a princess consort in advance. These words were even more lethal than Chu Qingyan's own words. Junmei felt like an arrow had pierced her heart deeply. She looked at Chu Qingyan with hatred. What was so good about this 10-year-old girl? She had no looks and no status. How could she compare to a noble princess like her? Chu Qingyan was also startled. This was the first time Big Ice Cube had publicly acknowledged her status. She felt a tingling sensation in her heart, as if someone was tickling her. She couldn't help but want to laugh. She also felt touched and warm. In this cold winter, she felt like the cold wind was isolated. His words kept repeating in her mind. Whether it's now or in the future, this is an unchangeable fact. It sounded very heartwarming. Although she knew that he might be rejecting Junzi Mei's words, she was still happy and didn't take Junzi Mei's provocation seriously. With such a big block of ice around, all love-struck women were cannon fodder. Xiao Su's words left Junzi Mei unable to refute. Since that was the case, she would not let Chu Qingyan off the hook. Then His Highness cannot drink. As his fiancé, no matter what, you have to drink this cup of wine on his behalf. Junlan liked hard liquor the most. They didn't like ordinary alcohol, so she was confident that as long as Chu Qingyan drank a mouthful, she would sleep for a day and a night. Moreover, this wine was harmful to people who were still growing. Chu Qingyan already knew that in Junlan, both men and women were good drinkers. As soon as she heard Junmei's words, she guessed what she was up to. This prince can't drink, so Qingyan will take my place. Xiao Su spoke. A smug look flashed across Junzi Mei's face, but soon her thoughts were about to be disappointed. However, Qin Yan is still young. This prince has never let her drink, so this prince will use tea in place of wine. I believe the princess is magnanimous and won't fuss over such a small matter with this prince. Xiao Su didn't wait for her to answer. He had already picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea. Junzi Mei choked. He said not to fuss over it with him, not to fuss over it with Chu Qingyan. His intention to protect her was clear as day. Moreover, he wasn't asking for her opinion. He had already overbearingly filled the cup with tea. This was clearly a warning to her. Chu Qingyan gave Xiao Su a thumbs up from under the table. Xiao Su's expression didn't change, but the corners of his eyes rippled with a slight smile because of her actions. However, it only lasted for a moment and quickly disappeared. Chu Qingyan gracefully picked up the cup and smiled at Junzi Mei. Thank you, princess, for your hospitality. Qingyan toasts you with tea in place of wine. It was too late for Junzi Mei to disagree. She could only reluctantly pick up the cup and drink it in one gulp. This forthrightness made Chu Qingyan look at her in a new light. However, she quickly smiled slyly. Princess, this is my first time in Junlan, and I'm already acquainted with such a beautiful and generous princess. Qingyan is very honored. For this chance encounter, Qingyan toasts you. Chu Qingyan filled the cup with tea and raised it again. Junzi Mei, who had just put down the cup, heard this and her face twitched. This praise was really untrue. However, if she didn't drink it, wouldn't she be denying her beauty and generosity? Junzi Mei ordered the servants to pour the wine and raised the cup. Miss Chu, this princess is also very happy to have met you. If she could keep Xiao Su by her side, she would definitely make him regret meeting her. She had never let go of anyone who had touched her things. The two of them toasted and drank. Chu Qingyan filled the cup with tea again and raised it with a smile. Princess, I've always thought that Sichuan was very broad and rich. However, now that I've come to your country, I realize that I was just a frog at the bottom of a well. For the prosperity of your country, let's toast. Was this person not done yet? The corner of Junzi Mei's mouth twitched. Although she could drink, today, in order to get Xiao Su drunk, she had specially ordered the servants to prepare the strongest liquor in the estate. Now, she felt as if she had shot herself in the foot. Thus, everyone was deeply impressed by Chu Qingyan's eloquence. This was because she could make a toast as high as the birds in the sky, the flowers on the ground, the sand in the residence. No matter what it was, as long as it came from her mouth, she could always come up with a perfect reason. Due to Xiao Su's presence, Junzi Mei didn't get angry. She couldn't get angry because Chu Qingyan was such a weirdo. Every reason she gave was flawless. After the meal, Junzi Mei drank most of the wine in the jar. Chu Qingyan also drank a bellyful of tea. When Xiao Su saw that the dishes on the table were almost finished, he stood up and said to Junzi Mei, Princess, it's getting late. We should return to our rooms. This late lunch actually lasted until the beginning of the new moon. Although Junzi Mei had drunk a lot of wine, she was still sober. It's indeed getting late. However, this princess would like to have a private conversation with Miss Chu. Would Miss Chu be willing? If there's anything you want to say it tomorrow. Xiao Su refused. Junzi Mei smiled and said somewhat provocatively, Is your highness worried that this princess will eat your little consort? Xiao Su didn't answer. Clearly, he didn't believe her. Seeing that Xiao Su wasn't responding, Junzi Mei didn't get angry. Instead, she turned to Chu Qingyan and said, What? Are you scared? You don't dare to be alone with this princess. Chu Qingyan wanted to go back and rest, but she didn't want to be pestered by Junzi Mei. She pondered for a moment, then smiled. Since princess is so kind, how could Chu Qingyan refuse? At least you know your place. Junzi Mei harumphed coldly, then turned to Xiao Su. Since Miss Chu has already agreed, I'm sure His Highness won't refuse to let her go. Chu Qingyan tugged at his sleeve. It's fine. I'll be back soon. Don't worry about me. Xiao Su frowned. If you go back too late, you'll drag out last night's punishment until tomorrow. Pfft, so this was what Big Ice Cube was worried about. Junzi Mei couldn't bear to see the two of them being surrounded by each other. Her expression immediately turned cold. Stop dawdling. This princess time is very precious. Princess, please. Chu Qingyan smiled. Junzi Mei harumphed coldly and led the way. Thus, Chu Qingyan followed behind her and left. Chapter 325. King of England, how can you let the little girl leave with that frivolous princess? Aren't you afraid that something bad will happen to her? Cheng Yanluo looked at their departing figures and turned to ask Xiao Su. Xiao Su said carelessly, she's not stupid. This reason. TSK, TSK, TSK. It wasn't clear whether he had confidence in the little girl or in himself. However, Cheng Yanluo smiled faintly. She also felt that the little girl wasn't easy to bully. Mr. Chu interrupted, Little Yama, we should go back. Your house is empty. One day without you feels like 3 years. Cheng Yanluo gritted her teeth. She was such a beautiful girl. How could she have anything to do with Yama? Besides, what did Ethereal have to do with her? Xiao Su watched the group of people leave in a hustle and bustle. His hands were behind his back, and his gaze was heavy. At this time, only Xiao Su and Turan were left in the pavilion. Master, the guards of the princess residence have increased again after last night. We have too many people, and we're too big of a target. It won't be easy for us to escape, Turan said worriedly. Although the guards of the princess residence couldn't be compared with the fierce cavalry, they were outnumbered. Therefore, they were currently at a disadvantage. Let's wait a little longer. Xiao Su frowned. The situation was a little bad. Yes. On the other side, Chu Qingyan had already followed Gentleman Mei to the residence's garden. Although it was already winter, the flowers in the garden were blooming beautifully. It was just that they couldn't tell the species. Gentleman Mei dismissed all the maids, leaving only the two of them. Chu Qingyan, you're very bold. Aren't you afraid that I'll take the opportunity to make you disappear from this world? Gentleman Mei slowly turned around. Because of the wine, her cheeks were flushed red like peach blossoms. There was a kind of soul-stirring beauty. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but sigh. If she didn't mention her temper, she was really a pitiful girl. Beauty and viciousness intertwined on her face. She was like a yiksha at night, beautiful yet dangerous. Chu Qingyan chuckled softly, but to her surprise, Junzi Mei was displeased. Her words did not elicit fear from Chu Qingyan, but instead received a mocking smile. Junzi Mei felt that her dignity had been challenged. Chu Qingyan, I didn't expect you to still be able to laugh. Chu Qingyan shook her head. The princess must have been too angry tonight. Since she dared to leave her in front of the ice cube, she wouldn't dare to do anything to her. Because she cared so much about her position in the ice cube's heart, she wouldn't do anything to harm her. Princess, do you think Qingyan should be crying right now? She asked. Humph. Junzi Mei snorted. Chu Qingyan, don't be complacent. Although you are now the concubine of the King of England, don't forget that it's only for now. No one can say for sure what will happen in the future. Chu Qingyan heard this and looked at the rumored beautiful and intelligent princess. In fact, the rumors were false. This princess was beautiful and intelligent, but she was too self-righteous. However, at this time, this princess really treated her like a 10-year-old child. If she felt that she had to threaten her before she was willing to get to the point, Chu Qingyan felt that she wasn't in the mood to play with her. She still had a few pages to write. Why did the ice cube always remember these things? Couldn't he let her have some fun? Princess, if you called Qingyan here just to say these words, then Qingyan feels that you don't have to. No one can say for sure what will happen in the future. Chu Qingyan used her own words to refute her. Chu Qingyan, stop right there. Junzi Mei didn't expect that this person would dare to turn around and leave without her permission. She hadn't even started what she wanted to say, so how could she allow her to leave just like that? It seems that Princess still has something to say. Then Qingyan is all ears. Chu Qingyan turned around and looked at her with a smile. Was this person finally going to get to the point? She was so tired of waiting. Junzi Mei walked in front of Chu Qingyan and raised her phoenix eyes. Chu Qingyan, are you relying on His Highness' love for you to not put this princess in his eyes? But don't forget, you're just a brat who hasn't even grown out her hair yet. If it weren't for the elder's decision to marry you, how could His Highness care about you? Since you feel that Qingyan isn't a threat, why does Princess keep making things difficult for me? Chu Qingyan said with a smile. She had already heard these words thousands of times in Sichuan. Her ears were already growing calluses. Junzi Mei choked. She wanted to get angry, but when she thought of what she was going to say next, she calmed down. Chu Qingyan, don't try to anger this princess. After she finished speaking, she lowered her hands to look at the cold moon in the sky. Do you know why this princess is so certain? Because you've landed in this princess's hands right now. Chu Qingyan raised her brows but didn't reply. She knew that once this person started talking about this topic and spoke in an aggressive tone, there would be even more things waiting for her to say. Junzi Mei turned to look at her with her phoenix eyes. This princess doesn't know why you've offended so many assassins and didn't even dare to report your whereabouts to Sichuan Emperor. However, this princess knows that as long as this princess gives the order, Sichuan's people will know that you're here. Your whereabouts will be exposed and you'll be doomed. Of course, this princess isn't saying all this to threaten His Highness. This princess just wants to tell you that this princess has the ability to protect His Highness. But what about you? Other than hiding behind His Highness and enjoying his protection, what else can you do? Junzi Mei's mocking words resounded in Chu Qingyan's ears. She knew that Junzi Mei wanted to break through her defenses and make her break down. She was very clear. However, Junzi Mei had achieved her goal. In this past year, what she regretted the most was that she didn't have enough power to protect the people she cherished. Kind words can warm people in winter, but malicious words can hurt people in June. That was probably what she meant. Chu Qingyan stopped smiling and looked at her coldly. Junzi Mei smiled proudly. This princess was right. However, it doesn't matter. You were chosen to marry His Highness for no reason. As long as you leave on your own accord and conceal your identity, this princess will guarantee that you won't have to worry about food and clothing for the rest of your life. Once you leave, this princess will follow and cover His Highness no matter where he goes. I won't let him come to any harm. Isn't this a good deal? Chu Qingyan lifted the corner of her mouth. It was indeed a good deal. With her head lowered, Junzi Mei didn't see the mocking smile on her face. When Junzi Mei saw that Chu Qingyan had lowered her head and didn't say anything, she thought that she was moved. Her tone returned to its high and mighty tone. Chu Qingyan, you're the first person this princess has let go of. Usually, people who touch this princess's things have never seen the sun rise the next day. You can be considered very lucky. However, you don't have to be too grateful to this princess. This princess just doesn't want to cause any discord between His Highness and this princess. Don't worry, this princess won't let His Highness find you. Junzi Mei added with certainty. Chapter 326. These words, these scenes, they all seemed familiar. Chu Qingyan recalled that back then, when Big Ice Cube had been wrongly imprisoned, Yao Yinrua had blocked the entrance to the prison and said those words to her. It was just a different soup but not the same medicine. Could it be that if you liked someone, you could only use threats to achieve your goals? It seemed that this had always been the case. If it had been the 10-year-old Chu Qingyan of the past, she might have been moved by her words, but now, she was living in this body. Chu Qingyan, I'm sure you're well aware of your own capabilities. There's no need for this consort to say anything else, right? Tonight, this consort will arrange for you to leave the residence. You, princess, you're thinking too much. Chu Qingyan interrupted Junmei's monologue. What did you say? Junmei stared blankly at her as she slowly raised her head. Her clear eyes seemed to be mocking her. So not only is princess thinking too much, your hearing isn't that good either. Chu Qingyan glanced at her coldly, then smiled faintly. Princess, did you know that more than one person has said those words to me just now? I'm already immune to it. What? Someone else has said those words to you? Junmei wanted to reprimand her for her disrespect, but after hearing her words, shock and anger took over her mind. She didn't think that there would be so many people who coveted His Highness. Moreover, they dared to speak so arrogantly. Whether or not there are people, and who they are, it's not important anymore. Chu Qingyan smiled faintly as she looked at Junmei. Her tone was slightly puzzled as she said, Actually, Princess, there's a question that's been bothering Junmei for a long time. Is it possible for Princess to clear up Junmei's confusion? Although she didn't know what Chu Qingyan was trying to do, Junmei still agreed unhappily. What question? Why is it that when a woman admires a man, she doesn't rack her brains to make that man care about her, but instead tries to kill all the women by his side? Isn't winning that man's heart more important than getting rid of those who don't agree with her? Why are there always people who forget their roots and chase after trifles? Chu Qingyan looked at Junzimei curiously, as if she was thirsty for knowledge. When Junzimei heard what Chu Qingyan said, her face turned ugly. Even a fool could tell that Chu Qingyan was cursing her in a roundabout way. Chu Qingyan, are you tired of living? Junzimei flew into a rage out of humiliation. Hearing this, Chu Qingyan's smile slowly faded. She looked at Junzimei with a faint smile. Actually, seeing the princess's reaction, Qingyan already has an answer. Without waiting for Junzimei to respond, Chu Qingyan continued to speak. That's because these kinds of people don't have confidence, or rather, they know that the man they like won't take a fancy to them. That's why they come up with all kinds of despicable means to force other women who are lower in status than them. When the man has no flowers and plants by his side, will he take a fancy to them? Or they can use their status to imprison him so that he won't dare to escape even if he wants to. This way, they win. At this point, Chu Qingyan asked seriously, Princess, do you think that Qingyan is right? Junzimei's thoughts were exposed by Chu Qingyan, and her face was filled with a myriad of expressions. It was very interesting. At this moment, she was speechless, but she was also angry. Chu Qingyan, Princess, Qingyan knows that my name is very pleasant to the ears. You don't have to call me that again. Chu Qingyan winked at her, her expression very mischievous and innocent. Junzimei was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Chu Qingyan's eyes regained their playfulness. Back to the topic just now. Princess, perhaps you can prevent future troubles by doing this, but all of this is built on the basis that your status is higher than others. Then, if you think that someone has a higher status than you, a better status than you, and is richer than you, and at the same time, has taken a fancy to the man you like, then wouldn't you have to abdicate your position? There's an old saying in the Jianghu, and that is, you have to pay back what you owe. That's the principle. Junzimei had to admit that Chu Qingyan's words made some sense, but she wouldn't admit it. Chu Qingyan, don't be so self-righteous. Do you think that His Highness won't be moved by this princess in the future just because he hasn't? That's only because he hasn't experienced how good this princess is. If he knew this princess's feelings for him, would he still care about you? It was said that all men loved beautiful women. She was the #1 beauty in Junlan. The number of men who had fallen for her was innumerable. She didn't believe that Xiao Su wouldn't be moved by her. Moreover, she was the princess of Junlan. She could be said to be a match made in heaven for the Lord of Junlan, a talented man and a beautiful woman. This princess is deeply doted on by imperial brother. If I marry him, it's equivalent to having the entire Junlan as his backing. In Sichuan, who would dare to look down on him? Junzi Mei's smile contained ridicule. Chu Qingyan, no matter what, you can't afford to give him this. Chu Qingyan held her forehead. Why was this princess so stubborn? No matter what she said, she would circle back to her own self-righteousness. However, she wasn't here to be a lobbyist. Princess, don't do unto others what you don't want done unto you. Do you know what His Highness wants? Junzi Mei was a little hesitant. You don't know what he wants, but you're forcing your guesses on him. Chu Qingyan smiled. This isn't for his own good. It's creating trouble for him. Judging from the various things that Sichuan Emperor had done to guard against Big Ice, if they were to form a marriage alliance with Junlan, it would put Big Ice in an even more disadvantageous position. This was because Sichuan Emperor, Consort Yu, and those people hiding in the dark wanted to get rid of Big Ice even more. Junzi Mei was dissatisfied with Chu Qingyan's preaching, but before she could find words to refute, Chu Qingyan had already spoken again, but with a trace of pity in her tone. Princess, you're self-righteous and blinded by selfishness. This is an illness that needs to be treated. Chu Qingyan left these words and turned to leave. She didn't want to waste time arguing with a person who couldn't be reasoned with no matter what she said. She originally thought that she could persuade Junzi Mei to let them leave. Unfortunately, after Junzi Mei expressed that as long as she left, she would protect Big Ice's safety, she didn't have any expectations of Junzi Mei. How could a possessive person be persuaded by her? But she had to admit that Junzi Mei's words had hit the weakest spot in her heart. She was indeed too weak. So weak that any random person could use this matter to poke at her weak spot. If she wasn't strong enough and didn't have the ability, she would work hard bit by bit. Sooner or later, she would let these people see that people who were once ants could also turn over a new leaf. Chu Qingyan, stop right there. Don't you dare leave without my order. Junzi Mei's angry words didn't stop Chu Qingyan's figure from walking further and further away. At this moment, a maid walked over. Princess, His Majesty summons you to the palace. He said that he has something to discuss with you. Junzi Mei temporarily put down the anger in her heart. She was puzzled. Imperial brother never summoned her at night. What happened? So she glared hatefully in the direction that Chu Qingyan had left, then waved her hand and said, "Prepare the horse. We're entering the palace." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.